Welcome back, everyone. Today we are discussing residential status, and this is class two, rather 1.5, because in the last class we only did half of the time the residential status, and then we started the residential status basically after the break. And today we'll be starting and doing the residential status and determining the residential status of other assessee, because up till the last class we completed for individual. So before we proceed, take 1-2 minutes and quickly ask all your queries so that in case there are any doubts that can be cleared from stage one. I'll quickly revise also meanwhile, so that it is easy for you to recall what we did in the previous class, which is yesterday's class. Meanwhile, any questions? Good morning, everyone. Rachna, definitely can you park your query for Tuesday's class? I will definitely take all the tax rates related query in the Tuesday's class, okay? Yes, Shruti, surcharge, maybe marginal relief, we'll do that on Tuesday's class. I'll do that, Amit. Anyone who has query related to surcharge, rebate, tax, we'll do everything and we'll try to give 10 minutes to your queries in the last, as in the last class which I have with you, that is on Tuesday. So Raghavendra says, my mom leaves to Canada in December as a permanent citizen. What would be her residential status? So she's leaving Canada for good, as in she would be now shifting her employment or income generating base to Canada. So then we have to see 182 days wala condition. Now, since she's leaving in December, and I'm assuming she has not gone anywhere outside India during the year. So from April to December, she must be in India for more than 182 days. So she will be a ROR. She must have planned to leave for Canada somewhere in September. In that case, she would have become a non-resident. Okay, Parth and everyone, किसी का कोई specific query? Marginal relief for rebate is only in new scheme. Darshana, I will ask the technology team to help why you are unable to download the notes. Okay. Swarda and everyone, anything in relation to basic tax rates as in concepts, we'll do that in the upcoming class. Sangeeta, there is no difference in new scheme for senior and super senior citizens. रेजिडेंट सिटीजन्स कोई कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं होता. इंडियन सिटीजन होते हैं जो इंडियन पासपोर्ट होल्डर्स होते हैं, इंडियन सिटीजनशिप जिसके पास होती है. ओके. Okay. So now let's quickly revise the residential status, which we did in the previous class. So we understood that residential status is very important to determine the scope of total income, because basis the residential status, how much amount of income, or rather what amount of income is taxable, would be known. So residential status has to be determined every year for every person. For individual, the residential status has a criteria as per section 6, which we were understanding. But before I proceed, remember residential status was a concept of physical stay, rather it's a major concept based on physical stay in India during the previous year. you are there in India in assessment year or not does not matter. You have to see the residential status for the previous year. Assessment year travels are given to you, it's just to confuse you. Okay, whatever has to be seen for the previous year. And it's not necessary that if my husband is becoming a ROR or a resident in India, I will also become a resident. Every person residential status is independent of their travels or their physical state. Physical state can be continuous, can be for any purpose, can be irregular. We do not have to see that whatever days criteria is should be done in one go or the person should not go. The purpose, the place, the continuity does not matter while calculating physical state in India during the previous year. So the basic concept of residential status for individual is that first you have to determine whether they are resident or whether they are non-resident. If they're non-resident, well and good, the topic ends there. But if they're resident, then the next step has to be followed to see whether they are resident and ordinarily resident or whether they are resident but not ordinarily resident. Resident में भी वो कौन से qualification में आते हैं, that has to be seen. This is only in case of individuals and HUF. The first condition which you have to see is to classify into resident or non-resident. The condition is simple. The condition which is there on the screen, 182 days or more in the previous year, or 60 days or more in the previous year, plus 365 days or more in the preceding 4 years. So either of the condition has to be fulfilled, as in either this condition or this condition. If 182 days condition has been fulfilled, you don't have to check the 60 days plus 365 days criteria. If 182 days condition is not fulfilled, then you will go and check the 60 days in the current previous year criteria and along with this 365 days or more in the preceding 4 years criteria. And you have to show how this 365 days or 60 days come. You have to write it carefully in your exam. Once both the conditions are not satisfied, both the conditions are not satisfied, then the person is non-resident. If one of the condition is satisfied, then the person is resident. No one will check both the condition. If both the conditions are satisfied, then also the person is resident. Now, if the person is resident, what you will do next is to determine whether they are ROR or RNOR. But to go for the further exceptions of ROR and RNOR, further conditions of ROR and ROR, let's just quickly see some exceptions to this general rule which is there on your screen. But remember, whenever you're calculating physical state, the date of arrival in India and the date of departure in India has to be seen. Now, in this case, the first exception is that in case of 60 days, you have to see 182 days, as in you have to replace 60 days, एक ही condition देखना है, which is this one. And you have to replace 60 days with 182 days and you have to see whether they are becoming residents. So if they complete this 182 days or more in the previous year and 365 days or more in the 4 preceding years, then they will be resident. If not, they will not be resident. So यहाँ पे एक ही condition है. In contradiction to the general rule, जहाँ पे हमारे पास दो conditions है, this is covered under the exception जहाँ पे we have only one condition. One condition is 182 days or more in the previous year plus 365 days or more in the 4 preceding years. ठीक है? अब exceptions क्या है? Exceptions are there for Indian citizens and person of Indian origin. If a question comes for person of Indian origin and you have to see that person is living abroad. Person of Indian origin is living abroad. Who is person of Indian origin? A person of Indian origin is a person whose parents or grandparents were born in undivided India. Undivided India say we mean that whether they were born in present day Pakistan or present day Bangladesh also, then also the person would be considered as person of Indian origin. अभी के पेरेंट्स अभी born हुए तब भी वो person of Indian origin है, but they mean to say undivided India. Okay. Person of Indian origin हो या Indian citizen है and they're living abroad. How will you test that this is an exception case? It would be given that ex-Indian citizen is living in Australia, earning in Australia, or a person of Indian origin is living in Canada, earning in Canada. Then you know that this is a case of exception and he comes to visits in India. He comes to visits in India, then you have to first see what is his Indian sourced income. Indian sourced income. If Indian sourced income is up to 15 lakhs, then 182 days or more in the present year is the criteria, along with 365 days in the 4 preceding years. Okay. Now, obviously, in your mind, it will come that, ma'am, what if the income is Indian source income is more than 15 lakhs? Abhi us pe chalte hain, uska criteria. But if, how would you go step by step if the question is of Indian citizen or person of Indian origin? A person of Indian origin शायद ना लिखा हो, उसके पेरेंट्स के बारे में लिखा हो. Maybe person of Indian origin is not written, but in the question it's written his parents were born in Chennai or his parents were born in Pakistan. Then you know that this person is of Indian origin. So they would be living outside and they're just coming for visits in India. They're coming for some occasion and going back. Coming, going back, coming, going back. Then you have to see the income. इंडियन सोर्स इनकम. वहां पे टेक्निकली जो लैंग्वेज पेपर में लिखना हुआ है, इट इज लाइक व्हेन इज टोटल इनकम एक्सक्लूडिंग फॉरेन सोर्स इज अप टू 15 लाख. सो आप वो वाला लैंग्वेज लिखोगे, बट टू मेक यू अंडरस्टैंड दे मीन इंडियन सोर्स्ड इनकम. ओके. Then 182 days or more in the previous year and 365 days or more in the 4 preceding years. This is one exception. Second exception is for Indian citizen only, not for person of Indian origin. Indian citizen जो India में रहते, those who are living in India, but now in the previous year, they are leaving India. They are leaving India. Leaving का मतलब क्या होता है? Leaving as in for a good time. They're shifting abroad for earning income, for having employment, for having self-employment. That is now they leave. They are leaving. Visiting outside India nahi hai. Leaving India. Okay. So they're leaving India during the previous year. This is very important. Previous year mein they are going. Permanently when they're shifting, that is in the previous year. For the purpose of employment outside India, then in that case also you have to see 182 days or more in the previous year wala condition, along with 365 days in the 4 preceding years. Also an Indian citizen जो crew member है of an Indian bound ship, they, for them also this criteria only prevails. So agar, if any of these person who are in the exception, which you can see now, if they're staying in India for 60 days plus 365 days, that condition is not to be seen. वो condition क्या है? 182 days plus 365 days in the 4 years. Simple. Okay? Sorted? Got it? Sure? यहाँ तक किसी को कोई doubt? I'm speaking quite fastly because it's a revision thing. And in the previous class, I think we did it in detail. यहाँ तक किसी को कोई डाउट? ROR, RNOR पे मैं आ रही हूँ guys. Point 4 top paragraph. 2.4 पे यूजुअल पेस कहाँ लिखा हुआ है? Yes. Yes, Mohin. Correct, Ramchandra. We do it by this step only, and this we discussed when we were doing basic concepts का class. भाई HUF का रेजिडेंशियल स्टेटस क्यों डिस्कस कर रहे हो अभी? रेजिडेंशियल स्टेटस के नोट्स यही तो है, तुम्हारी स्क्रीन पे इट इज देयर. खुद बना, कॉपी कर लो, इसमें सिंपल सा है गाइस. प्रीसीडिंग 4 years में 365 डेज होना चाहिए. योर प्रीवियस ईयर इन क्वेश्चन इज प्रीवियस ईयर 23-24. वो ईयर में यू हैव टू सी ईदर 60 days और इफ इज कवरिंग अंडर एक्सेप्शन 182 days वाला क्राइटेरिया. प्रीसीडिंग 4 years में 365 डेज यानी पिछले 4 साल में इन टोटल 365 डेज होना चाहिए. वो एक साल में टोटल 365 डेज हो सकते हैं, बाकी में ना हो, डजंट नॉट मैटर. सो इन द 4 preceding years you should be for 365 days in India. 15 lakh annual income, Divya, and that too Indian source. Source, Indian source income, Rachna, only Indian source income to apply the criteria. Deepika, please attend basic concepts wala class. Previous year is different, assessment year is different. Previous year 20, previous 4 years कौन से होंगे? 22-23, 21-22, 20-21 and 19-20. Previous year. Thank you, Priyanka. Thank you, everyone. What is Pakistani citizen of Indian origin? See, simple sa case hai. Simple sa hai. I don't know why you guys are getting confused on the concept of person of Indian origin. Don't create hypothetical scenarios. Simple sa case hai. If a person is living in Canada, okay, simple, and his parents are born in India, he is a person of Indian origin. If a person is a citizen of Canada, he's born in Canada, everything is there only. But his grandparents were born in Pakistan. He's still a person of Indian origin because Pakistan was a part of undivided India. Pakistan was a part of undivided India. Got it? Now, suppose we are all Indian citizens, okay? Now, suppose a person is born in Singapore, his parents were born in Singapore, but his grandparents were born in Bangladesh. Both the parents and he, both are person of Indian origin. Pakistani citizen of Indian origin, ये क्या concept है श्याम? Usual place of residence, business or employment does not matter. Usual मतलब जो वो उसका खुद का place of residence या employment है. रचना हमें कनाडा का क्या लेना नहीं. इफ ही इज गोइंग फॉर इंडिया 15 lakhs वाला एक्सेप्शन, इफ ही इज गोइंग फ्रॉम इंडिया 15 lakhs वाला एक्सेप्शन नहीं है. 15 lakhs वाला क्राइटेरिया नहीं है. 15 lakhs वाला क्राइटेरिया इज व्हेन द पर्सन इज लिविंग, ही इज ऑलरेडी लिविंग अब्रॉड एंड ही इज कमिंग ऑन विजिट्स टू इंडिया. फोकस करो ना, मैंने एक एक चीज अलग लिखा है उस पर. व्हाट इज जीरो इनकम ऑफ इंडियन सिटीजन एंड फुलफिल 180? अरे फॉरेन इनकम टैक्स होगा नहीं होगा वैशाली, पहले रेजिडेंशियल स्टेटस क्लियर होगा तभी विल कम टू दैट थिंग. नो, आई डू इलस्ट्रेशन टू अगेन. कमिंग टू दैट संजना, कमिंग टू दैट, यहाँ इसी स्टेज तक अभी किसी को डाउट है? थैंक यू. करेक्ट ऐश्वर्या, करेक्ट. If a person is leaving India for employment, 182 days condition is there. पर्सन जो ऑलरेडी, दोनों एक्सेप्शन में फर्क है. एक एक्सेप्शन है कि एक बंदा इंडियन सिटीजन है, ही स्टेइंग अब्रॉड and he's coming on visits to India. Second exception is a person is already an Indian citizen staying in India and is now moving outside India. Now his economic interest is moving outside India. लीविंग इंडिया फॉर ट्रिप, वो नॉर्मल केस है, जो बेसिक केस है. एक्सेप्शन में खाली एक्सेप्शन वाले रिलेटेड केस आएंगे. इफ यू नॉट कवर्ड अंडर एक्सेप्शन तो वो बेसिक केस 182 डेज और 60 डेज प्लस 365 डेज. अब सपोज someone is going for business meeting outside India, तो वो 182 days और 60 days दोनों में से कोई one condition you have to see. If a person is leaving permanently outside India, then only you have to see only 182 days वाला condition. Okay, sorted. चलो दुर्गा, व्हाट इज योर क्वेरी? अभी मैं इनकम कौन सा टैक्स होगा नहीं होगा, आई विल नॉट रिस्पॉन्ड टू इट बिकॉज आई हैव नॉट टॉट इट. सो प्लीज स्ट्रिक्ट योर क्वेरीज बिकॉज अदर्स पीपल आर ट्राइंग टू कोप अप विद द flow of the class. So please stick your queries to what is being taught away. Okay, then only take up the other queries. This exception clear कि कब सिर्फ 182 days or more in the previous year plus 365 days in the 4 preceding year has to be seen. This Indian citizen wala who is living abroad, person of Indian origin who is living abroad, coming on visits to India and has an income up to 15 lakhs. अगर उसकी इंडियन इनकम जीरो है तब भी 182 डेज वाला क्राइटेरिया, यही वाला क्राइटेरिया देखोगे, अप टू 15 lakhs है गाइस. ओके, नाउ एक ही कंडीशन रह गया. वन ओनली क्वेश्चन इज लेफ्ट, दैट पर्सन ऑफ इंडियन origin or Indian citizens who comes on visits in India have Indian income more than 15 lakhs. तब क्या करेंगे? Then in that case, the residential status have to be seen instead of 182 days. The residential status have to be seen as per 120 days. So you see that government has reduced the days criteria because they want these people should become resident and we tax major income from them. So इसलिए 120 days in the previous year plus 365 days in the preceding 4 years criteria has to be seen. Got it? सब कुछ cover हो गया. अब अगर any of the person is not falling in your exception, then you have to see the conditions as per this, which is this or this or this. Now, एक concept और है deemed resident का. A person is not becoming resident either by any of this situation. Exceptions में भी वो cover नहीं हो रहे, कुछ नहीं हो रहा. So deemed resident is a concept which is applicable only on Indian citizen who has income more than 15 lakhs. कौन सी income? Indian source income. But are not liable to tax in any other country due to their domicile, due to the tax laws there. कुछ भी reason हो सकता है. They are not taxable. They are not, maybe their income is exempt, whatever is the criteria, because people plan their incomes in a very smart way by knowing the tax laws of other countries. Any reason can happen. Then that person would be deemed to be the resident because you are not becoming resident by any of the conditions which we saw. Hence, you would be assumed to be resident. You would be deemed to be resident. Here, वो कितने डे इंडिया में है नहीं है, he may not have come India in the entire year, does not matter. What matter? Indian citizen. What matters? Income more than 15 lakhs, Indian source. What matters? Not liable to tax in any other country. ये तीनों conditions if are fulfilling, he is a deemed resident. Only on Indian citizen. Person of Indian origin का बस concept कहाँ apply होता है? जहाँ पे Indian income more than 15 lakhs and less than 15 lakhs and they are coming on visits in India. बाकी जगह सिर्फ Indian citizen है, leaving for employment or as a crew member or even for the concept of deemed resident. Now, once a person is classified as resident, you have to move further. You have to move further and classify them as ROR or RNOR. Resident and ordinarily resident but not ordinarily. Ordinary नहीं, ordinarily resident. Okay? उसके लिए क्राइटेरिया क्या है? उसके लिए दोनों चीजें चेक करनी है. दोनों चीजें, as in this condition also and this condition also. In the preceding 7 year, in the preceding 7 year, preceding मतलब, अब if you're talking about previous year 23-24, from previous year 16-17 to previous year 22-23, he should be in India for 730 days or more. He can be in India in one go. हर साल 120 days, 120 days, 120 days he's coming, does not matter. 730 days in total in aggregate in 7 years होना चाहिए. If this condition gets fulfilled, you will move further to check the second condition. Second condition is he should be a resident in India in 2 out of 10 preceding years. 2 out of 10 preceding years means previous year, अगर previous year 23-24 का बात हो रहा है, then in previous year 13-14 to previous year 22-23 में at least 2 years he should be resident. At least 2 years he should be resident. If both the conditions are classified or qualified, then he's an ROR. If one of the condition is qualified, then he's a RNOR. If none of the condition is qualified, then also he's an RNOR. Okay, but always remember that deemed resident would always be considered as RNOR. क्योंकि एक तो आपने उसे जबरदस्ती रेजिडेंट बना दिया है, राइट? सो ही वुड बी कंसिडर्ड ऑलवेज एन RNOR. डीम्ड रेजिडेंट वुड बाय डिफॉल्ट बी कंसिडर्ड एज RNOR. And also the person who has income more than 15 lakhs and is a person of Indian origin or an Indian citizen coming to visits in India and is qualifying resident because of 120 days criteria, he would also be always an RNOR. He would also be always an RNOR. Is it clear? Now concept of ROR, RNOR clear? एक बारी और देखो, we'll move forward. Because individual का guys समझना is extremely important. Durga, I have already answered your query. The conditions to see Indian source income is that they are saying that you are coming on visits, but still you are earning so much amount from India. So you should qualify as resident. Calcutta says if a person having income more than 15 lakhs, okay, and he's in India for 120 days, but not 365 days, will he be a resident or not? He will not be a resident. The condition दोनों साथ में करना है 120 days plus 365 days. And this is written on your book also on 2.5, just above the wall. Okay. I don't know why people are asking income taxability question when we have not moved forward. Anmol, please hold your queries. फॉरेन सोर्स इनकम ये 15 लाख के क्राइटेरिया में नहीं है, ओनली इंडियन सोर्स्ड इनकम. I have already uploaded Excel sheet for the tax sheet, Rakshita. You can please refer to it. ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स एंड पेरेंट्स दोनों में से कोई भी. Sure, no need to say sorry, but all the tax rates related queries would be taken up in the next class. Rakshita, deemed resident is a concept where there is an Indian citizen. अब people plan their travel in such a way, उनको पता है कि 120 days रहा तो Indian citizen, तो being an Indian citizen, I may be considered as an RNOR, right? So they plan their travel in such a way that he does not qualify to be a resident in India. Okay. He does not qualify to be a resident in any other country, or he's qualifying to be a resident but is not liable to tax in any other country. So in that case, and he's earning such a huge amount from India, in that particular cases, they are termed as deemed resident. ROR and RNOR के लिए स्टडी मटेरियल में लिखा हुआ है if he would be an RNOR if he's in India for 729 days or less. तो एक ही बात है ना. I am telling he would be an ROR if he's in India for 730 days or more. It's same thing. First, you have to classify him as resident. Then you have to classify him as resident or ordinarily resident or resident but not ordinarily resident. For classifying into ROR or RNOR, there is no income criteria, Thamari. पहले check 730 days वाला condition, then check 2 out of 10 days वाला condition. मर्चेंट नेवीज के लिए क्रू मेंबर वाला कंडीशन फॉलो होता है गाइस. He should be a resident in 2 out of 10 years. यानी वो 182 days वाले क्राइटेरिया से एटलीस्ट anyway he should be a resident. तुषार, I am not allowed to, so please. Sankaravan, I have told you the condition of becoming an ROR. The book has told you the condition of becoming an RNOR. वहां पे लिखा हुआ है if such individual has been non-resident in India in 9 out of 10 years. Because the condition for being a resident is 2 out of 10 years. So अगर वो 9 out of 10 में है तो he is a non-resident. इंडियन सोर्स्ड इनकम मीन्स जिसका सोर्स इंडिया में है, जिसका अक्रू इंडिया में हो रहा है, विच इज गेटिंग अक्रूड इन इंडिया. दैट इज कॉल्ड इंडियन सोर्स्ड इनकम. ओके, थैंक यू सो मच. Now, I've already devoted almost half an hour of this class for the revision. Now, please practice. Please practice. You will totally get to do all the questions. Trust me. You can practice it in the break time also. You'll definitely get it. अरे 6 months for ईयर नहीं, ऐसे नहीं करना अनमोल. हर ईयर में ही शुड बी अ रेजिडेंट. हर ईयर में ही शुड बी अ रेजिडेंट मतलब वो 182 days या 60 days वाला कंडीशन. केशव, दे आर नॉन रेजिडेंट. ओके, now let's move forward, please. Next category is HUF. HUF मतलब Hindu Undivided Family. उसका भी we have to calculate the residential status. The residential status for HUF is simple, very simple. First, I have to see whether the HUF is resident or non-resident. The question is resident or non-resident in India. Okay. Now, if HF is non-resident, question ends there. If HF is resident, then the question follows and to see whether the HF is ROR or RNOR. Just like we do for individuals. Okay. So the residential status of HF, the first condition to check whether the HF is resident or non-resident, and HF would be a resident if the control and management of its affair is situated wholly or partly in India. Control and management is situated wholly and partly in India. Now, guys, we have to understand what do you mean by control and management. अगर control and management India में है पूरे तरीके से या थोड़ा सा भी है, if the control and management is in India 100% or even 5% or 10% or even one decision making has happened in India, it is said that HUF is a resident in India. So most of the HUFs, if not all, most of them would classify to be an ROR or would classify to be a resident at least. Okay. Now the question is, now what do you mean by control and management? See, by control and management, I am not referring to business operations. Business operations can be outside India. I am an HUF who is doing export business or in business outside India, can be anything outside India. But the control and management, matlab brainchild, matlab the decision making person or the decision making authority is in India, or the people who are making decisions are happening in India. Then in that case, we refer to have control and management in India. Person who is responsible for making, I'll use the term, vital decisions. Vital decisions. If that brain is in India, then the control and management is in India. See, again, I'm saying the registered office can be outside India, the main business can be outside India, anything can be outside India, but if the person who is making decision is controlling it from India, then the HF is a resident. It is on the assessee to prove no that the decisions were taken outside India. The income tax officer would assume that yes, the decisions were taken in India. You have to show कि नहीं जो हाँ ठीक है कर्ता is living in India, but he goes outside India to make the decision. Then the control and management is happening outside India. Just because some members are living in India does not make that the control and management is in India. If they're going outside India to make the decisions, the control and management is happening outside India. And if the control and management is entirely or wholly outside India, then only the HF would be non-resident. Even one key decision made in India during the previous year, the control and management would be said to be in India. Sorted? Now, once the control and management is in India or wholly or partly, then you have to classify the HUF as ROR or RNOR. HUF as ROR or RNOR. So to now, यहाँ पे role of कर्ता comes when we have to further classify the HUF as ROR or RNOR. Before that, the main role was only control and management. But now once we know whether this particular person, whether the HUF has classified as resident, now we have to see कर्ता का physical stay in India. And the conditions are same just like that for individuals. Individuals के लिए भी क्या condition होती थी? That a resident individual would classify as ROR if he is resident in at least 2 out of 10 previous years immediately preceding the relevant previous year, right? Or the karta during 7 years immediately preceding the relevant year was in India for 730 days or more. So, not or, sorry, and. So that can I say if karta is an ROR in his individual capacity, then a resident HUF will always be in ROR, correct? क्योंकि कर्ता अगर इंडिविजुअल कैपेसिटी में ROR है, इंडिविजुअल कैपेसिटी में मीन्स एज एन इंडिविजुअल he is qualifying to be in ROR because he is fulfilling these two conditions, then the HUF which is resident will also be fulfilling these two conditions, right? And would always be in ROR, correct? Yes. You will be thinking, ma'am, अगर HUF non-resident है but कर्ता ROR है. If HUF is non-resident but कर्ता is ROR, then whether HUF would be in ROR? No, because if HUF is proved to be non-resident, you don't have to see the conditions further. You only have to see the conditions when HUF is resident. Now, to classify it as ROR or RNOR, you have to see the physical state. But HUF is an artificial thing, right? So, physical state किसका देखोगे? Physical state of कर्ता you will see. Physical state of कर्ता, that means he should be a resident in 2 out of 10 previous years and 730 days or more in 7 preceding previous year. Simple. If either of the condition is satisfied and not both, then the karta is RNOR, the HF is also RNOR. If one or none. Okay. Now just see this question. The business of HF is transacted from Australia and all the policy decisions are taken there. E. The Karta of HUF was born in Kolkata, visits India during previous year 23-24. After 15 years, he comes to visit on 1st of April 23 and leaves for Australia on 1st of December 23. Determine the residential status of Mr. E and HUF. सबसे पहले HUF का करते हैं because it's simple. Since the major decisions of HUF, since major नहीं, rather all the decisions of HUF are taken outside India, hence the control and management is wholly outside India, hence HUF is non-resident. Now coming to Mr. E. So Mr. E came on 1st April 23 and stayed till 1st December 23. So how many days he is in India? April 30, May 31, June 30, July 31, August 31, September 30, October 31, November 30 and 1st December. So ये total करो कितना हो गया? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 245? So obviously he's satisfying 182 days wala condition. He is a resident. He's a resident. Now the question comes whether he's an ROR or RNOR. Now since he has come after 15 years, he is a he's a RNOR. Got it? ठीक है? Quickly see this table. It's pretty simple and sum up what is the residential status of HUF. Nafia, the maximum closest you can be to the study material solution, that is how you have to present your answer. HUF में सिख आते हैं, जैन आते हैं, हिंदू अनडिवाइडेड फैमिली में बुद्धिज्म आते हैं, बट नॉट मुस्लिम्स. अमित करता, व्हाट इज Sarvanshu, what is your query? See, the first thing I told Sarvanshu that even if your spouse in RNOR or if even if your spouse is NR, does not matter. Every person's individual status has to be seen. Thank you so much, Shruti. Deemed resident would always be an RNOR. उनके लिए you don't have to see 730 days or 2 out of 10 days वाला condition. अच्छा, one of our friend has asked कि मैम please do illustration 1. वहां पे days calculation समझ में आया. Okay, let's quickly go to illustration 1. So Mr. Anand is an Indian citizen and a member of the crew of a Singapore-bound Indian ship. Okay, Singapore-bound Indian ship engaged in the carriage of passengers in international traffic, departing from Chennai port on 6th June. From the following details of the previous year 23-24, determine the residential status of Mr. Anand for 24-25 assessment year, assuming that his stay in India in the last for previous year is 400 days. Okay, let's start. The date he entered in the continuous discharge certificate is 6th June, and the date he entered while he was signing off was 9th December. In the last class, while finishing the topic, I told you that when the person वैसे when he comes to India and when he leaves India, that is date of arrival and date of departure, is considered to be India. But in case of the people of crew, the people of crew member, the crew member of any foreign bound Indian ship, for them, the date when they sign the CDC and when they sign off the CDC is not to be considered in India. Okay. So now, basis that, we have to calculate the number of days in India. So let's calculate the number of days quickly. If you have done, very good. If you're not done, please do it again. So he was in India on April, May, June में he was only in India for 5 days, first to fifth. The answer is coming to 179 days. बुक में अब टोटल में से माइनस कर दिया. यू गो एज पर व्हाट यू फॉलो. डेज इन इंडिया निकाल लो, वो बेटर है. अप्रैल 30 days, मई 31 days, जून 5 days. Then he is not there. He came on December 9th को sign off किया. तो 9th would not be considered as in India. So 22 days would be considered in India from 10th to 31st. Then January 31, February 29 and March 31, total 179 days. Got it? 227 किसका आंसर आ रहा है? वेरी गुड संजना. वेरी गुड. एक इलाख्या. वेरी गुड. ऐश्वर्या, श्रेयस. गौरव फर्स्ट क्लास नहीं अटेंड करा था, सब कुछ बताया था एचयूएफ के लिए, एवरीथिंग. सम पीपल वुड से मैम 179 आए, 180 आए, नॉन रेजिडेंट तो होना ही नहीं. पेपर में डेज वुड बी इन सच अ वे दैट मे बी 181 या 182 डेज हो रहा हो. सो डोंट टेक कैलकुलेशन ऑफ नंबर ऑफ डेज अ सिंपल टास्क. ओके. चलो पूजा, थैंक यू सो मच. नाउ लेट्स मूव ऑन टू. No, we don't always have to take leap year. ये by chance 23-24 is coming to be a leap year because 24, yani February 24 is the year when 29 days would be there. So please be very careful. Ordinarily resident मतलब अगर बुक में कहीं ordinarily resident लिखा है, that means they are referring to ROR. So now HF is also clear. What अब कौन कौन बच गया? कंपनी बच गया, एओपी बच गया, बीओआई बच गया, फॉर्म्स बच गया. एओपी अब यहाँ पे बहुत ही सिंपल है गाइस. यहाँ अब any category of person which we are discussing now would be either resident or would be either non-resident. Would be either resident or would be either non-resident. यहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम ही नहीं है आरओआर और आरएनओआर की. क्वेश्चन ही यहाँ पे खत्म हो जाएगा. नाइस नो. यस. So if I'm talking about firm, AOP, BOI, and even your local authorities or artificial juridical person, यहाँ पे भी same concept है as HUF, that they would be resident if control and management is wholly or partly in India. If control and management is wholly outside India, then non-resident. एंड सेम कॉन्सेप्ट यहाँ पे कंट्रोल एंड मैनेजमेंट का मतलब क्या है? द मेन डिसीजन मेकर. यहाँ पे पार्टनर्स का क्या रेजिडेंशियल स्टेटस है और मेंबर्स का क्या रेजिडेंशियल स्टेटस है, इट डज नॉट मैटर. पार्टनर्स कैन बी रेजिडेंट, a firm can be non-resident. Partners can be non-resident, but a firm can be resident. Does not matter. Okay. सबका रिस्पेक्टिव इंडिविजुअल एज एन इंडिपेंडेंट स्टेटस देखना है, irrespective of their related members, irrespective of anything. What is the criteria for that particular person? You have to see. So residential status of partner or member is not relevant if the principal decision maker takes even a single decision in India. So in that case, firm, AOP, BOI, AGP will be considered to be a resident in India. And by control and management, we mean the vital decisions of the business. Vital decisions of the business, where are they taken? एंड रादर ऐसा नहीं है कि आप बोल दो आज कंट्रोल एंड मैनेजमेंट इसके पास है, आज कंट्रोल एंड मैनेजमेंट इसके पास है, आज कंट्रोल एंड मैनेजमेंट इसके पास है. देयर शुड बी सम डिग्री ऑफ परमानेंस, राइट? सच पावर शुड be exercised with some degree of permanence. Yes, that now the control and management is this in this person's hand. If the managing director and CEO takes all the decision, then he would be considered as CEO. Generally इनमें नहीं होते rather, but then he would be considered managing partner. Would be place would be considered to see where the vital decisions are taken. Again and again, I'm saying the business operations can be outside India. All the employees can be outside India. But if the controlling is happening from India, the firm, AOP, BOI, local authority, artificial juridical person, and even HUF would be a resident. So what about companies? Now companies के लिए guys, residential status अलग तरीका है. वहां पे we are not using the word control and management. We will not use the word control and management. We will use the word POEM. Place of effective management. Place of effective management. पता है क्या है? A lot of our tax concepts now, which are now getting amended, are getting amended because of the international documentations to make it standardized as per the international economic concepts, right? The concepts which are used now majorly in the developed countries, India वो concepts को ले रहा है. And place of effective management is one such term which is used a lot in developed countries, which is used a lot in developed countries. So companies के case में whenever you are writing the residential status, you will never write it as the control and management should be in India. You will write if place of effective management is in India, then company is a resident. But now let's start again from point zero. Company के case में how do we determine the residential status? A company would be resident if it's an Indian company. Indian company will always be resident. उसका control and management कहाँ है कहाँ नहीं does not matter. If you are Indian company, that is you're a company incorporated in India as per the Indian company laws at any stage of state or government or union government, whatever, you are an Indian company. तभी Indian company का definition हमने starting में पढ़ा था. Okay, Indian company will always be a resident. तो Indian company का residential status निकालने का जरूरत नहीं है because by default they will always be a resident. What about foreign companies, basically, or the companies who are not Indian companies? उनके लिए if the place of effective management in India is in India in that year, then the foreign company would be called as a resident in India. Simple. Don't use the word control and management here. प्लेस ऑफ इफेक्टिव मैनेजमेंट का मतलब क्या है? मतलब वही है इन अ वे, वही है कि जहाँ पे की मैनेजमेंट डिसीजंस हो रहे हैं या कमर्शियल डिसीजंस हो रहे हैं, वो कहाँ पे? सो लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड द डेफिनेशन. प्लेस ऑफ इफेक्टिव मैनेजमेंट मीन अ प्लेस वेयर की एज इन वाइटल इंपॉर्टेंट मैनेजमेंट एंड कमर्शियल डिसीजंस that are important for the conduct of business of an entity as a whole are in substance made. Substance made means दिखावे के लिए दिखा दिया आपने, बोर्ड मीटिंग बाहर हो रही है, बट एक्चुअली में सारे जो थॉट प्रोसेस जा रहा है, ब्रेन स्टॉर्मिंग जा रही है, वो इंडिया में हो रही है, राइट? सो इट शुड बी वेयर द की डिसीजंस regarding managerial and commercial decisions which are important for the business entity as a whole are taken. So people do not misuse this. There were guidelines which were introduced. Guidelines जो है वो आप final level पे पढ़ोगे. It is not there at your level. So guidelines on how to determine place of effective management, that whether it is in India or not. उसके लिए बहुत सारे टेस्ट है, ठीक है? It's not a small concept. It's a very big concept. for place of effective management, but that test is not at your level. That would be considered at final level. So with this, we are thorough with the residential status of all types of person. कहीं पे कोई doubt है guys? Anywhere, any doubt? Clear? Yes, no. Then see, if two or more people are responsible for decision making and अगर एक भी इंडिया में बैठ के decision ले रहा है, then he is a resident. As an HUF would be a resident or AOP would be a resident. प्लेस ऑफ इफेक्टिव मैनेजमेंट का कॉन्सेप्ट कंपनीज के लिए इसलिए है क्योंकि ग्लोबली ये कॉन्सेप्ट कंपनीज के लिए ही एप्लीकेबल है. एलएलपी इज सेम एज फर्म. एलएलपी को फर्म की तरह मानेंगे. The Shweta says, how will we get to know whether the decision is taken in India or not? First of all, for example point of view, you will get to know because paper में लिखा, as in question में लिखा होगा whether the decision is taken in India or not. But in real life, it is again seen where the board meetings are happening, as in where the major meetings are happening, where the person who is the key decision maker is majorly residing, and you have to prove otherwise. As in otherwise means you have to prove as an SSC that मैम ये सब कंट्रोल एंड मैनेजमेंट बाहर हो रहा था, यहाँ पे कुछ नहीं हुआ. The onus would be on SSC. कंट्रोल एंड मैनेजमेंट एंड पोएम को अगर मैं लेमैन पर्सपेक्टिव से देखूं, if I see it from the layman perspective, Milapati, it is almost same, but poem is a very wider concept because poem is an internationally accepted concept. And I'll tell you very honestly, when I did my CA, there was no concept for poem. It is hardly 6-7 years back the concept of poem was introduced. Okay, so poem is a very widely accepted concept, and there are very major guidelines. जहाँ पे आपको asset holding देखना है. There are when you will go to the guidelines, there is asset holdings, there's number of employees holding, there is board meetings which you have to see. So for the company perspective, poem brings a wider concept, but control and management is a very general thing to say, and it is very difficult to prove when you say that it is outside India, right? So poem के लिए तो there are still tests which you through which you will determine yes or no, but control and management के लिए there is no test. वो एक basic understanding दे दिया कि control and management का meaning क्या है, and now you have to tell whether it was in India or not. So it can be a subjective thing, but poem cannot be a subjective thing. Tushar, what do you mean by that? Poem is place of effective management. LLC बाहर की कंपनी है, we foreign companies. Company would be, Lamani, company would be a resident if it's an Indian company, always a resident. If it's a foreign company, if place of effective management is in India, it would be a resident. If place of effective management is outside India, it would be non-resident. Place of effective management क्या होता है? Basically, it's the same where the key decisions for the company as a whole are taken. But you will not use the word control and management for companies. You will use the word place of effective management. How to determine it is actually taken up at final level. Tushar, please say the doubt rather than just commenting on. I would appreciate that. Indian company is a domestic company. Along with that, any foreign company which makes an arrangement to pay dividend in India would also be considered as Indian company, would be considered as domestic company. This was done in the first class. Please see it. Majorly, to be very honest, The questions for residential status majorly can come for individuals or come for HUF and individual both. To be honest, I think at your level, this would come. How do we understand it's a foreign company, guys? अगर वो इसके पास Indian incorporation certificate होगा, this is not anything which is happening हवा में कि मैंने बोल दिया I'm Indian company. Indian company is a company which is you have to take place, you have to take birth as per the Indian Companies Act. मतलब legal birth. Legal birth के लिए incorporation certificate लगता है. For the purpose of income tax, Raju, LLP and firms are considered same. Tushar, I'm not allowed to speak in Hindi completely for all the topic. I can just say some lines so that you can relate to it. So please do not push me to speak in Hindi again and again. माधव फॉरेन कंपनी है, यूएस में कंपनी है, बट उसके की डिसीजन मेकिंग्स इंडिया में होती है, बोर्ड मीटिंग्स इंडिया में हो रही है, सारे एसेट्स इंडिया में है, तो प्लेस ऑफ इफेक्टिव मैनेजमेंट इंडिया में कहला जाएगा. ओके. कंपनी लाइक वॉलमार्ट आर फॉरेन कंपनीज, उनका मेजर डिसीजन मेकिंग अगर इंडिया में हो रहा है, बहुत प्लेस ऑफ इफेक्टिव मैनेजमेंट की गाइडलाइंस है, टेस्ट है. ऐसे नहीं है प्लेस ऑफ इफेक्टिव मैनेजमेंट का एक डिफरेंट क्लास होता है ऑल टुगेदर टू अंडरस्टैंड इट, जिसमें एसिड रिलेटेड टेस्ट है, बोर्ड मीटिंग रिलेटेड टेस्ट है, एम्प्लॉयज रिलेटेड टेस्ट है. सो वो सारे टेस्ट डिटरमाइन करते हैं वेदर प्लेस ऑफ इफेक्टिव मैनेजमेंट इज इंडिया नॉट. पैसिव इनकम टेस्ट है, एक्टिव इनकम टेस्ट है. सो प्लीज ट्राई टू फोकस. सिंपल. इंडियन कंपनी है, अगर है तो ऑलवेज बी अ रेजिडेंट. इंडियन कंपनी नहीं है, दैट मीन्स इट्स अ फॉरेन कंपनी. देन वेदर पोएम इज इन इंडिया, पोएम इज इन इंडिया, यस, देन रेजिडेंट. पोएम इज नॉट इन इंडिया, देन नॉन रेजिडेंट. सिंपल. So, except for individual, जिसका revision we did at the beginning of the class, HUF would be a resident if control and management is in India. HUF would be a non-resident if control and management is wholly outside India. HUF would be an ROR or RNOR if Karta is in India for both the conditions, 730 days and more in the 7 previous preceding years, previous years, and 2 out of 10 may he was resident in at least 10 preceding previous year. Okay. Then AOP, firms, LLP, BOI, local authorities, artificial juridical person, they would qualify as resident if if the control and management is in India completely or partly. If it is completely outside India, they would be non-resident. Company के case में Indian company will always be a resident. A foreign company, that is a company which is not an Indian company, would be a resident if the place of effective management is outside India. If it's in India, it would be a resident. Simple. Now, let's focus on the scope. Place of effective management is poem. Place of effective management is poem. और इसका definition भी हमने अभी book पे पढ़ा. Where are you guys? Guys, I would be very happy to take all your doubts, but if your doubts are just because of your lack of attention, that is not appreciated. सर्वांशु, इंडियन कंपनी है, ऑलवेज बी अ रेजिडेंट. फॉरेन कंपनी है, आपको the paper may you only have to write whether place of effective management is India or not. You will not be asked to determine it because it is a final level concept. Flowcharts are already in your study material, Vandana. So now we come to the scope of total income. Please, everyone on the board, and please be with me on this, okay? इंडिविजुअल के लिए वी हैव ROR, RNOR, राइट, एंड नॉन रेसिडेंट। HUF के लिए भी सेम। कंपनीज, फर्म, LLP, AOP, BOI, AGP, everyone, they are either classified as resident or classified as non-resident, right? उनके लिए ये वाला क्राइटेरिया है ही नहीं। सो देयर रेजिडेंस इज इक्वल टू इंडिविजुअल HUF का ROR, सिंपल। ठीक है। नाउ स्कोप ऑफ टोटल इनकम, स्कोप मतलब कितना इनकम वुड बी कंसिडर्ड टू बी टैक्सेबल इन इंडिया। स्कोप मतलब कितना कितना इनकम इंडिया उस पर टैक्स लगा सकता है, और व्हाट टाइप ऑफ इनकम इंडिया कैन अप्लाई द टैक्स ऑन। ठीक है। फर्स्ट इज, ध्यान से सुनना, एंड हाइपोथेटिकल सिचुएशंस मत लाना, इनकम रिसीव्ड इन इंडिया, रिसीव्ड इन इंडिया और deemed to be received in India। इनकम रिसीव्ड इन इंडिया और डीम्ड टू बी रिसीव्ड इन इंडिया, मतलब इंडिया में रिसीव हुई है, या एज्यूम, कुछ सिचुएशन में जहां पे एज्यूम किया जाएगा कि इट इज डीम्ड टू बी रिसीव्ड इन इंडिया। So this income which is received in India or it is deemed to be received in India, it is taxable for both, not rather both, but for all three of them. It would be taxable in India. जो भी इनकम आपको इंडिया में रिसीव हो रहा है, वट एवर इनकम यू आर रिसीविंग इन इंडिया or it is deemed to receive in India, that would be taxable in India. Okay? Received in India का मतलब क्या है? Now, what is received in India? मतलब first time receiving. Please focus here. First time receiving in India. First time matlab when you got the right, the entitlement of receiving it, that is called first time received in India. For example, you got rent. Okay, you got rent. Rent आपके दुबई अकाउंट में डिपॉजिट कराया टेनेंट ने, एंड देन वंस दुबई बैंक अकाउंट में डिपॉजिट कराया, and then you transferred it to your Indian bank account. Will it be said to be received in India? No. Received मतलब जब फर्स्ट टाइम वो एंटाइटलमेंट मिला, आपके हाथ में वो इनकम आई फर्स्ट टाइम इन द सेंस, वो इनकम सबसे पहले आपकी ओनरशिप में कब आई? दुबई में आ गई ना, दुबई में आई, दुबई में आई, राइट, इट केम इन दुबई। दिस इज जस्ट अ रेमिटेंस, दिस इज जस्ट अ रेमिटेंस, this is not receiving in India. A subsequent received in India is not called received in India. The first time ownership of income for that particular income came in Dubai. So this is not a concept of received in India. Similarly, vice versa, the rent was deposited first in Indian bank account and then immediately I shifted to Dubai bank account. So this, Baba, this is called received in India. This is called received in India. So first time जब आपको वो ownership entitlement उस income का मिल रहा है, the basic thing which you're getting now in your hand, वो your hand मतलब whether that account is in India or abroad. If it's in abroad, then it is not received in India. Further remittance को we cannot say received in India. Received मतलब the first instance when you got that income. Okay. Further remittances not received in India, question will definitely come out of it and you will say कि मैम ये received in India क्यों नहीं है? अगर वो आपके पास आपके किसी अकाउंट में पहले बाहर मिल गई, then इंडिया में मिली, it is not received in India. It is only further remitted to India. Okay. Is it clear? Now, so received in India मतलब कोई भी income, if in the first instance it's received in Indian bank account or in cash in India, then it is called received in India and it would always be taxable. किसी के लिए भी it would always be taxable. Got it? Next is income accrued or deemed to accrue. Accrued or deemed to accrue in India. So when I say accrued or deemed to accrued, at this stage you can understand जिसका source India में, the source of which is in India. For example, I have a property in India which I have let out, okay, which I have given on rent. तो उससे जो रेंट आ रहा है, अब वो चाहे मुझे दुबई में मिले, सिंगापुर में मिले, बट इट इज बिकॉज ऑफ अ प्रॉपर्टी विच वॉज इन इंडिया, राइट? इट वॉज फॉर अ प्रॉपर्टी विच वॉज इन इंडिया, हेंस द इनकम इज said to be accrued in India. So this is called sourced, एक तरीके से sourced in India, right? Because the property from which I'm earning is sourced in India, right? Now suppose I have done FD, FD in an Indian bank account, okay? Now उससे मुझे receiving जहां मर्जी हो रही हो, दुबई में हो रही हो, वो उसका इंटरेस्ट मुझे किसी भी बैंक अकाउंट में दे रही हो, but the FD was in of an Indian bank, the interest which I'm getting is from an Indian bank. That means the source is in India. The source is in India. So it is called accrued in India. अभी at this stage we will do इतना accrue to understand accrue. अभी accrued in India का deemed to accrue in India में बहुत सारा चीजें which we'll do one by one. Okay. So when it's a concept of accrued or deemed to accrue in India, then it is taxable for all three of them. For all three of them. That is ROR हो, RNOR हो, NRO. फर्म कंपनीज एलएलपी के लिए आरओआर यानी आर रेजिडेंट, ठीक है, ये सेम कैटेगरी में अप्लाई हो. So can I say if income is received in India, it is taxable irrespective of the residential status. If the income is accrued in India or deemed to accrue in India, it is taxable irrespective of the residential status. The question is, this is all happening in the previous year, guys. Okay. अब एक बार इनकम को आपने अक्रू बेसिस पे टैक्स कर दिया, यू विल नॉट टैक्स इट अगेन ऑन रिसीट बेसिस. दिस इज ऑल्सो कॉमन अंडरस्टैंडिंग. वन इनकम वुड बी टैक्स्ड ओनली वंस. इफ यू हैव ऑलरेडी टैक्स्ड ऑन अक्रू बेसिस, you will not tax it again on receipt basis. Simple. So मैम रेजिडेंट और नॉन रेजिडेंट ये इतना हमने 1-1.5 घंटा आज क्यों लगाया अगर कुछ डिफरेंस ही नहीं? अब डिफरेंस आएगा ना. For an income which is accruing outside India and receiving also outside India, because accruing outside India हो but received in India हो तो वो सब में taxable है. If accruing outside India है but received in India, it is taxable in all. If it is accruing in India but received outside India, it is taxable in all, right? But if it is accruing outside India and is received outside India, ये वाली इनकम यानी ग्लोबल इनकम यानी फॉरेन सोर्स्ड इनकम, दिस इनकम इज ओनली टैक्सेबल, दैट इज इंडिया वुड टैक्स ओनली इन केस ऑफ ROR और रेजिडेंट इन केस ऑफ फर्म्स LLP, OP, BOI कंपनीज एक्सेट्रा. ठीक है. सो ये कौन सी इनकम है जो बाहर मिल रही है और बाहर ही अक्रू हो रही है? फॉरेन सोर्स इनकम. बिकॉज अगर बाहर अक्रू हो रही है, इफ इट इज गेटिंग अक्रू एंड इट इज रिसीव्ड इन इंडिया, नेचुरली इट इज गेटिंग टैक्स इन एवरीवन's हैंड. Or if it is getting accrued in India and received outside India, then also it is getting taxed in everyone's hands. I'm talking about what is accruing outside India and first time received outside India. So that is only taxable in case of ROR, not in case of non-resident. Now what about RNOR? What about RNOR? RNOR के केस में भी prima facie it is not taxable. Prima facie it is not taxable, but if the income which is accruing outside India, if the income which is accruing outside India is derived from a business controlled or profession controlled or profession set up in India, then in that case, it would be taxable in case of RNOR. So RNOR and NR के केस में बहुत सिंपल सा डिफरेंस है. Any income which is sourced outside India, received outside India, would not be taxable either in case of RNOR or NR. हाँ, ROR के लिए it is taxable, yes. But for RNOR and NR, it would not be taxable. But if a business is controlled in India, or income which is derived outside India from a business which is controlled in India, then in that case, or a profession which is set up in India, then in that case, my friends, the income would be taxable in India. For example, I'm sitting here in India, okay? I am having a business income from China. सारा business मैं यहाँ से बैठ के control करती हूँ. All the business of China I'm controlling by sitting in India only. ठीक है. सो इफ आई एम अ नॉन रेजिडेंट नथिंग वुड बी टैक्सेबल बिकॉज वो चाइना में बिजनेस हो रहा है, इनकम इज अक्रूइंग इन चाइना, एंड वो रिसीव भी चाइना में होता है. Chinese yen may I receive that money. Okay. So accruing also outside India, receiving also outside India. Later, remittance would not be considered as received in India. I'm saying again and again. Okay. So now I'm sitting in India and the business is accruing in China and it is received in China only. Okay. Now, if I'm a non-resident, nothing would be taxable for that Chinese business. If I'm a resident, that is ROR, everything would be taxable. My entire global income for that year is taxable. But if I'm in RNOR, it would also be taxable. Why? Even if accruing outside India, even if received outside India, but since the business was controlled from India, it would be taxable in India. But only in RNOR. See, ROR ka simple hai. Entire global income for the previous year. Whatever is accruing or receiving in the previous year would be taxed in the previous year, provided it is not taxed earlier. Provided it is not taxed earlier. So ROR के लिए entire global income is taxed in India. Entire global income is taxed in India either on accrued basis or on receipt basis. But suppose अब वो accrue पिछले साल हो गया था, पिछले साल I taxed it. Now if I am receiving it this year, I will not tax it again, right? I will not tax it again. It would be double taxation. For RN, for ROR and for non-resident and for RNOR, only income which is accrued in India or deemed to accrue in India or received in India or deemed to received in India is taxable, right? But RNOR के लिए income from business which is controlled in India but it is derived outside India would also be taxable. अगर controlling rights यहाँ पे है, it would be taxable. कोई doubt? You can take screenshot, you can make it, the same table is there in your book on page 2.17 also. So totally your choice. Mansi, I've already done the revision. Please do not say it again and again. Please. Please stay with me on the class and I'm trying to revise it not once, twice, but thrice almost all the concepts. So please stay and please bear whatever is done while it is done. अब कोई पूछ रहे ROR and RNOR क्या होता है, मैं क्या बोलूँ इस स्टेज पे? Let me. फ्लिपकार्ट अगर इंडियन इनकॉर्पोरेटेड कंपनी है तो इट इज अ रेजिडेंट ऑलवेज. वो बाहर बिजनेस करे, मेजर बिजनेस बाहर करे, डज नॉट मैटर. ओके श्रुति. राहुल, व्हाट इज योर क्वेरी? If you are in India, you are receiving income from your US property in your Indian bank account in the first instance. Savana, it would be taxable in all the three scenarios. Thank you, Kulwant. If there is any doubt, please do ask, okay? Third one, कहाँ पे confusion है श्रवणा? ROR, RNOR, सी ग्लोबल, अब बाहर के लोग भी बाहर की इनकम पे टैक्स लगाएंगे. Especially for ROR, it would be difficult because he has to pay tax for Indian accrued income, Indian sourced income, Indian received income, and also foreign sourced income. Yes, he would be paying taxes in foreign also. अब वो वहां पे there are agreements between countries, not between two people, but between countries, where they will give some tax relief to another person, where they will give them some tax relief. But Priyanka, ROR and RNOR concept, I have done it in the previous class also. तभी तो स्वाति, तभी तो कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ रेजिडेंशियल स्टेटस में ROR इज सो क्रिटिकल. Why? Because they are the people who are majorly staying in India, who are majorly using Indian resources, Indian infrastructure, Indian economy benefits. So they have to pay tax on their entire global income. Simple. Whether they're earning it outside India, whether they are not earning outside India, that is whether in India, they have to pay tax. See, government, simple. Government would not leave taxes for Indian sourced income for anyone, whether it's ROR, RNOR, NR, right? They will never leave taxes for them. Government will never leave taxes for the income which is received in India, right? Government will take more taxes from ROR for the income which is received, accrued, everything outside India during the previous year. Why? Because you are a resident, you fully utilized Indian resources to earn that, so you have to pay tax on it. And this is not only for Indian government, every country do it. Every country where you are becoming resident as per their status, they will tax you on the entire global income. So it's not only India is being mean and before you start saying, ma'am, India, ye wo, वगैरह, every country does so. Okay. What is third scenario? में simple सा याद करना है. How do you have to understand third scenario? Any income which is accrued outside India, received outside India, is not taxable in the case of non-resident and RNOR, but it is taxable in the case of ROR, that is resident and ordinarily resident. Okay. But, but, if a business, जो मैंने China का example दिया था, if the income is coming from a business which is accruing outside India, but it is controlled from India, accruing outside India, receiving outside India, but controlled from India, that then in that case, RNOR उस पे tax देगा. There has to be some difference between NR and RNOR, right? So RNOR को क्या है कि अगर वो कंट्रोल इंडिया से कर रहा है, he has to pay tax on it. Simple. Amazon कंपनी अगर वो बाहर इनकॉर्पोरेटेड है, उसका कोई ब्रांच है, लाइसेंस ऑफिस यहाँ पे इनकॉर्पोरेटेड है, वो रेजिडेंट है. कंपनीज के लिए प्लीज डू नॉट यूज ROR, RNOR. कंपनीज वुड बी ओनली रेजिडेंट. अभी इसी स्टेज पे करेक्ट बोलना सीखोगे तभी पेपर में करेक्ट लिखोगे. सो Amazon कोई भी फॉरेन कंपनी अगर बाहर इनकॉर्पोरेटेड है तो वो रेजिडेंट ओनली इफ देयर पोएम इज इन इंडिया. If their poem is in India, as in place of effective management is in India. यूएस बेस्ड कंपनी ने अपना सब्सिडरी खोला या लाइसेंस ऑफिस खोला एज पर इंडियन कंपनी लॉ, सो दैट सब्सिडरी इज एन रेजिडेंट. ROR इंडिविजुअल का हो, HUF का हो या रेजिडेंट हो, फॉर कंपनी AOP, BOI, LLP एक्सेट्रा, स्कोप सेम है. Amount received from family member residing outside India would be taxable in the hands of India. अगर वो amount gift की तरह है, then gift के provisions लगेंगे. But naturally it would be from family member residing outside India, but it is received in India, it would be taxable. $120 वाला कंडीशन नहीं है क्रू मेंबर्स के लिए. ओनली 182 days प्लस 4 years में 365 days. कार्तिक ऐसा कुछ अगर वो कर रहा है, he is in a very difficult dilemma. He has to pay taxes as deemed resident as a RNOR in India. See, business running in India and control and management, Keshav, is different. Control and management is a decision authority. अगर किसी कंपनी की decision authority बाहर है, कंपनी की नहीं, रादर कंपनी के लिए तो पोएम का कॉन्सेप्ट है, बट किसी कंपनी की डिसीजन अथॉरिटी बाहर, फर्म्स की, HUF की डिसीजन अथॉरिटी बाहर है, इवन इफ ऑपरेशंस आर इन इंडिया, देन इट वुड बी अ नॉन रेजिडेंट. डीम्ड का मतलब होता है एज्यूम. गुंजन मतलब माना जाएगा कि वो रेजिडेंट है. Devendra, because your study material is a best graphic thing in itself. Okay? और मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा आपको अमेजोन का, फ्लिपकार्ट का, इनका रेजिडेंशियल स्टेटस क्यों जानना है। आप एक इंडियन कंपनी का सिंपल क्यों नहीं याद कर सकते? अगर वो कंपनी इनकॉर्पोरेटेड इन इंडिया है, इट इज अ रेजिडेंट सिंपल। मतलब मनी, व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय आउटसाइड इंडिया मीन्स नॉन रेजिडेंट, देन हाउ डू वी पे टैक्स ऑन रेजिडेंट? मैम, व्हाट इज योर, प्लीज रिपीट योर क्वेश्चन अगेन, रिफ्रेम इट। यस, इंडिविजुअल्स आरओआर है, एचयूएफ आरओआर है। कंपनी ऑब्वियसली, तभी मैंने यहाँ पे टेबल पे लिखा हुआ है कंपनी रेजिडेंट आरओआर के ऊपर। उन सबके लिए ये लगेगा ग्लोबल इनकम टैक्सेबिलिटी। ओके, ठीक है। सो नाउ लेट्स टेक अ क्विक ब्रेक एंड we'll come back and we'll explore more about the concept of deeming, deemed accrued in India or deemed received in India. ठीक है, so let's take a quick break of 10 minutes and we'll be right back. Thank you. Yes. So guys, welcome back after the break. We'll quickly do illustration 5 and you will get to know about what concepts we were talking about. And then we'll move on to understand more deeply that what is received, deemed to be received in India and deemed to accrue in India. Okay, so let's begin. And trust me, guys, your study material, every concept is being summarized. Every concept is either given as a table, or is either given as a flow chart, or is either covered as notes. So take it as your Bible. Trust me, it will help you all a lot. Okay, any questions? Okay. But just 1 second. How do we pay tax in ROR? Baba, आप अपना income tax return भरोगे. Scope of total income. Remember, I told you when we were doing this particular thing called how to we were doing a brief overview of how to compute income and tax. So first we said रेजिडेंट इनकम निकालना है, देन उसके बाद स्कोप डिसाइड करके वो इनकम को डिफरेंट हेड्स में डिवाइड करना है. वी फर्स्ट अंडरस्टैंड द स्कोप एंड देन वी डिवाइड द इनकम इन डिफरेंट हेड्स, राइट? So this is how you have to divide your income into different heads. Then you will file your return and you will pay taxes on it. अब बोलोगे गवर्नमेंट को कैसे पता चलेगा दैट आई एम अर्निंग आउटसाइड इंडिया? गवर्नमेंट को सब पता चल जाएगा, डोंट वरी अबाउट इट. गवर्नमेंट हैज ट्रीटीज विद अक्रॉस कंट्रीज हु शेयर इंफॉर्मेशन. Mamta, how we know leap year? Baba, you know February में 29 days है इसमें. How we know, how we don't know वाला concept तो है ही नहीं. अंकुर, इंडियन कंपनी ऑलवेज रेजिडेंट होगा. फॉरेन कंपनी के लिए कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ पोएम होता है एंड पोएम के लिए बहुत सारे टेस्ट है. आपको बस इतना याद रखना है एट दिस स्टेज दैट इफ द प्लेस ऑफ इफेक्टिव मैनेजमेंट इज इन इंडिया फॉर अ फॉरेन कंपनी, इट इज अ रेजिडेंट इन इंडिया, अदरवाइज इट्स अ नॉन रेजिडेंट. Okay, first we'll do this illustration and then we'll do illustration 2 का point 1 which Swati is asking. Okay, चलो. और जितना गाइस स्टडी मटेरियल्स को रेफर करोगे ना, अगेन एंड अगेन यू विल लर्न द लैंग्वेज व्हिच यू हैव टू राइट इन एग्जाम. सी, some words are non-tradable. Non-tradable मतलब you have to write those words in exam. अगर आप क्रूड और डीम टू अक्रू को वहां पे पेपर में लिखा हो ड्यू और डीम टू अक्रू और सोर्स और डीम टू सोर्स, वो गलत होगा. वो टेक्निकल टर्म्स यू हैव टू फॉलो, यू ऑलवेज हैव टू फॉलो. लाइक एग्रीकल्चर इनकम, आई वाज टेलिंग यू दैट यू हैव टू राइट दैट प्रोसेस व्हिच इज ऑर्डिनरली एम्प्लॉयड. तो ये सारी चीजें तो करनी ही करनी है. नॉट दैट इट इज incredible. Yes, English can be a bit up and down as in sentence framing, but some terms have to be written. और वो तभी आएंगे when you are reading this study material. Now, here you are given one question and you have to see whether this particular item would be taxed in ROR, in case of RNOR, or in case of NR, or all of three of them, or one of them, or both of them. Short term capital gains, income क्या है अभी नहीं मैटर करता. On sale of shares of Indian company received in Germany. Germany में receive हुआ है, does not matter, but it's of an Indian company. It is sourced in India. It would be taxable for all three. Next, dividend from Japanese company received in Japan. Accrued outside India, received outside India. Only in case of ROR. Rent from property in London, deposited in a bank in London, later on remitted to India through approved banking credentials. Accrued outside India, received outside India. Remitted हुआ उसको received in India नहीं कहेंगे. I told you first instance of received have to be seen where it has happened. So only in case of this 75,000, only in case of ROR. अब हमारे बुक पे 75,000 after 30% दिया है. It's as per house property का computation. You will understand it when you will do house property. Dividend of an Indian company, taxable for all. Agriculture income from land in Gujarat, not taxable anywhere. Agriculture income is not taxable. Got it? चलो अभी और डीप में डीम्ड टू अक्रू का कॉन्सेप्ट पढ़ेंगे तो और डीपली समझ आएगा. So before we go to that, illustration 2 लेना है of Swati has a doubt on it. 1 second. Okay. Everyone on illustration 2 part 1, please focus. So here we are talking about a person who is Brett Lee. Brett Lee, an Australian cricketer, visits for 100 days in every financial year. This has been his practice for the past 10 financial years. Okay. Find out the residential status for assessment year 24-25. बस और कुछ नहीं दिया हुआ. 100 days वो आता है every year. 100 days आते हैं and he stays in India. Okay, nothing is given. Simple. He is a Australian cricketer. तो इसमें exception वाला केस तो लगेगा ही नहीं. Exceptions कुछ नहीं आएंगे because he is not an Indian citizen. तो मेरे को exceptions पे अपना जाना ही नहीं है. I have to see whether 182 days condition is followed or not, or 60 days plus 365 days condition is followed or not. Right? So in this case, simply 60 days wala condition is completely. Why? Because previous year 23-24 में 100 days and previous year 19-20 से previous year 22-23 में 400 days. So 60 days in the present financial year plus 365 days in the preceding four previous years. Okay. So hence, at least he's a resident. But now whether he's a resident or ordinarily resident and ordinarily resident or resident but not ordinarily resident, that we have to see. एक बारी अगर एक individual resident हो जाता है, do not stop your answer there and say कि हमारा तो question हो गया. No. Now we have to see whether he's a resident and ordinarily resident or resident but not ordinarily resident. अब every year he's staying 100 days, right? So in the past 7 years, the maximum stay would have been 700 days. And the condition for being a resident is 730 days. So isliye he has not fulfilled first condition. Why should I go to the second condition to check? So he's a resident but not ordinarily resident. Clear? Devendra, till the time study material is not received, please download all of this from your BOS knowledge portal. Please, Swati, is it clear now? Financial year, previous year, in general parlance is same, but income tax may, in all the places when you're referring to computing of income, you will use the term previous year. Sure. So now we move ahead to understand deeming provisions. मतलब कब assume किया जाएगा कि income is deemed to be received in India or the income is deemed to accrue in India. Okay, that we have to see now. Because received and deemed to be received, accrue or deemed to be accrued, all are taxable. Both are taxable in all scenarios, right? For resident also, for non-resident also. So now let's understand the receiving provisions. 1 second. Income received or deemed to be received. Income received का मतलब when in the first instance you have received, first occasion when the recipient gets the money under his control. इसलिए remittance is different. Remittance to India is not equivalent to received in India. Is not equivalent to received in India. So first occasion जब आपको receive हो रहा है. But then ma'am, what is deemed to be received? Deemed to be received मतलब even if रिसीव नहीं हुआ, इवन इफ आपके अंदर वो कंट्रोल नहीं आया एज एन एसएससी, आपके बैंक अकाउंट में नहीं आया, आपके हैंड में नहीं आया, but still it would be assumed that it is deemed to be received. Still it would be assumed that it is deemed to be received. And all the three provisions of deemed to be received, matlab assumed to be received, are in relation to salary majorly. सैलरी वाला जब चैप्टर करोगे और अच्छे से समझ आएगा, बट लेट मी टेल यू डीम्ड टू बी रिसीव्ड का कॉन्सेप्ट क्या है। आपको मिला नहीं अभी, बट वो माना जाएगा कि आपको मिल गया। यू हैव नॉट रिसीव्ड इट, बट इट वुड बी अज्यूम दैट यू हैव रिसीव्ड इट। ओके, फर्स्ट इज इफ यू गेट एन इंटरेस्ट इन योर प्रोविडेंट फंड। अब वो प्रोविडेंट फंड क्या होता है, मैम कितना इंटरेस्ट मिलता है, क्यों मिलता है, सब धीरे धीरे सैलरी में समझ आएगा। सैलरी टॉपिक व्हेन यू विल डू एवरीथिंग वुड बी देयर, बट प्रोविडेंट फंड एक एक्सटर्नल फंड है वेयर यू मेक कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन। ठीक है, इफ द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ प्रोविडेंट फंड is x more than 9.5%, interest is more than 9.5%, so अगर इस प्रोविडेंट फंड का इंटरेस्ट से 10% है, तो ये जो 0.5% है वो आपके हाथ में टैक्सेबल हो जाएगा एज डीम्ड टू बी रिसीव्ड। वाई? बिकॉज इट इज रिटन हियर, इट इज रिटन हियर। इवन इफ आपको अभी वो इंटरेस्ट मिला नहीं, एक वो थर्ड पार्टी के पास वो फंड चल रहा है, द फंड इज गोइंग ऑन विद द थर्ड पार्टी, एंड इवन इफ यू हैव नॉट रिसीव दैट इंटरेस्ट, बट एनी इंटरेस्ट इन एक्सेस ऑफ 9.5% would be considered as deemed to be received. Okay, this is the simplest thing which I can tell you, and abhi sirf itna samajhna guys, honestly sirf itna samajhna. Okay, also you have made contribution and your employer also makes contribution. If that contribution is more than 12% of your salary, if that contribution is more than 12% of your salary, then it would be taxable as deemed income. It would be taxable as deemed to be received income. Okay, contribution more than 12% हो या interest more than 9.5% हो। एक और ATCCD में एक नेशनल पेंशन स्कीम है NPS, where the government as in the employer makes the contribution and employee also makes a contribution. Pension क्या होता है? On retirement I will receive some amount, थोड़ा amount every month, that is called pension. So when the employer is making the contribution, be that employer be central government or anyone, that contribution is said to be deemed to be received and it is taxable. Even if अब देखो वो contribution आपको आज नहीं मिल रहा, that contribution is going into some fund which you will receive after your retirement or so, right? So still it would be deemed to be received, कि ये माना जाएगा कि आपको मिल गया, this would be assumed that you have received it. Next, amount transferred from unrecognized provident fund to recognized provident fund. क्या होता है, ये जो फर्स्ट प्रोविजन हमने पढ़ा था प्रोविडेंट फंड का, वो आरपीएफ से रिलेटेड था, इट वाज रिलेटेड टू रिकॉग्नाइज्ड प्रोविडेंट फंड। अब आप क्या बोलेंगे मैम रिकॉग्नाइज क्या होता है, अनरिकॉग्नाइज क्या होता है? टू टेल यू वेरी क्विकली, रिकॉग्नाइज मतलब विच इज अप्रूव्ड बाय इनकम टैक्स, अनरिकॉग्नाइज मतलब इट इज नॉट अप्रूव्ड बाय इनकम टैक्स। ठीक है, इलीगल वे से, मतलब इलीगली अनअप्रूव्ड फंड से अप्रूव्ड फंड में पैसे ट्रांसफर कर रहे हो, unapproved fund से approved fund में you're transferring the money, it would be said that you have deemed to receive. Because अभी honestly आपके hand में, आपके बैंक अकाउंट में spending के लिए these money have not come. Spending के लिए these money have not come. But it would be deemed to be received. आपके पास अभी तक उनको स्पेंड करने का राइट नहीं आया, यू विल गेट दैट राइट sometime in the future, maybe at a retirement stage, but still it could be deemed to be received. कौन सी तीन चीजें? Where contribution in RPF is more than 12% or interest is more than 9.5%. Only the excess amount would be taxable. When contribution is made by employer to NPS, and when the fund is transferred from unapproved way to an approved way, so that is taxed. That is taxed. ये अभी दिस स्टेज पे यू जस्ट हैव टू नो, यू डोंट हैव टू रिमेम्बर इट मच, बिकॉज सैलरी करोगे तभी समझ आएगा। ओके, ठीक है, बट आई ट्राइड टू सिंप्लीफाई इट, सो प्लीज स्टिक टू दैट सिंप्लीफाइड वर्जन इंस्टेड ऑफ प्रोविडेंट फंड मैम वहां पे ये, मैम वहां पे वो। प्लीज डोंट गो इनटू द स्टोरीज प्लीज। ये वाला चैप्टर बहुत जरूरी है। कितने मार्क्स का आता है? 5 to 10 मार्क्स का आता है गाइस। Devendra, if you will request me to repeat, I will be very happy to repeat. But if you will request all together, ma'am, what is this? Instead of just staying with the class, वो थोड़ा सा avoid करो, okay? But see, everyone, please feel free to ask your questions. But I am not appreciating if you're making hypothetical scenarios, which at your stage is not relevant, or if something I just told a minute ago or 10 minutes ago that this has to be taken care of and it comes as an ignorance. वो चीज मत करो, please. Otherwise, because and that's not I'm saying because I have a problem repeating it. There are so many students listening. Their time should not unnecessarily be wasted. Okay. Plus, as a faculty, we have restricted time to teach chapters, and we cannot take more than that. We try कि 2.5 hour class को we sometimes make 2 hour 45 minutes, 3 hours, but we don't want to unnecessarily utilize everyone's time. ठीक है? और मेरा क्लास छोड़ो, किसी भी चैप्टर में कोई चीज एक टाइम में, 2 टाइम में, 3 टाइम में स्टिल समझ नहीं आ रही, लीव इट फॉर सम टाइम. Read it again with a fresh mind by listening to the audio or by understanding the note. Read it again. क्या पता उस टाइम समझ आए. अगर तब भी समझ नहीं आए, ask from the faculty in the next class. Okay, but don't just push your brain very hard unnecessarily. वो confusion create करे. ठीक है. Now this is very important. Income of meaning of accruing and arising. Accrue and arising का मतलब एक होता है guys. Accrue and arising का मतलब is one. What is accrue and arising and what is deemed to accrue and deemed to arise? ठीक है. Let's understand. कोई मुझे ये बता सकता है कि accrue and due में फर्क क्या है? Accrue and due में फर्क क्या है? What is the difference between accrue and due? What is the difference between accrue and due? The accrue happens every day. That if an income is getting accrued, it is getting accrued on every single day basis, but it gets due. That is the right to enforce the payment is the date when it is due. Accruing happens every day, due happens on a particular point. For example, अब I'm working with an organization. So the salary is accruing every day. The number of days I'm working, it is getting accrued. But I will get the due only on, say, last day of the month, right? On the 31st day. That they only then on that day it would be due. I cannot say every day and go to them and say कि भाई आज salary accrue हुआ, आपने नहीं दिया मुझे. You did not give it to me. No. So accrue is when it is happening, it is incurring, it is arising. Due is when you can legally enforce it. कि अब तो पैसे दो, अब नहीं दिए उसके बाद there is a problem, right? For example, interest. Interest हर रोज के बैलेंस पे मिलता है. We get interest on everyday balance, but it is credited, due and credited on a single day. It can be quarterly, it can be half yearly, it can be annually. Okay, so accrue and due में बस ये difference है. So you will not write income deemed to due. Income deemed to accrue or arise in India is what the concept we follow. That is what is getting incurred or what is getting generated, right? And एक और चीज बार बार I have said that if an income is taxed on due basis, you will not tax it again on receipt basis. If an income is taxed on due basis, you will not tax it again on receipt basis and vice versa also. If income is taxed on accrued basis, you will not tax it again in a subsequent year on receipt basis. And just because कोई चीज इंडियन बैलेंस शीट में आ गई, कोई चीज इंडियन बैलेंस शीट में आ गई does not mean it is accrued here. Just because it is taken in Indian balance sheet, we cannot say it is accrued in India. We have to go through the provisions of accruing, whether the source was in India or not. Whether the source was in India or not. So to remove the confusion of this, the इसको कैसे लिखा है? Okay. So to remove the confusion of this, the income tax has section 9. Section 9, my friends, which is called income deemed to accrue or arise in India. This section has almost, subsection 1 almost has 8 clauses. Section 9 ka subsection 1 almost has 8 clauses, which tells different types of incomes are there. Different types of income: salary income, interest income, royalty income. बहुत सारी different types of incomes are there, and they tell कि when that income would be deemed to accrue in India. When that income would be deemed to accrue in India, specifically from the perspective of a non-resident. बिकॉज नॉन रेजिडेंट के लिए सबसे बड़ा खेल है ना. एज इन रेजिडेंट के लिए तो एवरीथिंग इज टैक्सेबल, चाहे वो कहीं पे भी हो रहा हो, राइट. बट नॉन रेजिडेंट हैज टू बी वेरी केयरफुल वेदर दैट इज अक्रूइंग इन इंडिया और नॉट. So even if in some scenario you think that prima facie it appears that it is accruing outside India, but because of the deeming provisions, deeming provisions, it will be assumed that it is accrued in India, that is, it is sold in India, and hence it would be taxable for all. Income accrued or deemed to accrue in India is taxable for all. So Section 9 is one of the most important section to understand scope of total income. Why? Because it will tell you what type of income is assumed to be accrued in India, even if prima facie you think by the scenarios that even if it appears to be accrued outside India, but अगर वो Section 9 में cover है, if it is covered under Section 9, it would be said to be deemed to accrue in India. And majorly अपने आप को non-resident करके अगर आप समझोगे, it would be very easy to relate. Okay. So we'll go one by one. Section 9, subsection 1 has, can I rotate it? Or let me open it. Just 1 second. Give me 1 second. It does not mean asset. Very good, Gaurav. I think everyone knew about due and accrued. Very good. So students, Section 9 almost covered these 8 clauses which you can see on your screen regarding deemed to accrue. जैसे कब income which is accruing indirectly or directly outside India, but it would be deemed that it is accrued in India. Salary, कब माना जाएगा कि it is accrued in India? Salary for government citizen, when it would be assumed that it is accrued in India. When would dividend always would be deemed to accrue in India, provided certain conditions are fulfilled. When will interest, when will royalty, when will fees, and when will gift be assumed to be accrued in India? So ये section 9 subsection 1 में clause ऐसे है. It's like clause 1 there are 4 parts, 3 parts, clause 2, clause 3, ऐसे कर करके there are till clause 8. There are sections which will tell you that income is deemed to accrue in India, and agar वो deemed to accrue in India, guys, it would be taxable in all cases. So we'll pick up one by one to understand what are the conditions in relation to deeming provisions, in relation to deemed to accrue in India. And if it is yes, it would be taxable in India, irrespective of the fact कि वो person non-resident है, irrespective of the fact whether it is received outside India, irrespective of the fact that prima facie it appears that it was accrued outside India. कुछ भी situations हो, if it is as per Section 9, it is approved that it is accrued in India or deemed to accrue in India, it would be taxable in all scenarios. Okay, so now let's begin. From the first part. First part कहता है any income accruing or arising to an assessee any income accruing or arising to an SSC in any place outside India. In any place outside India, whether directly or indirectly, through or from any business connection in India, through or from any property in India, through or from any asset or source of income in India, or through the transfer of capital assets situated in India. 4 parts हो गए. Any income, कोई भी income which is accruing or arising to an SSC outside India, which appears to accrue or arise to an SSC outside India. एक नॉन रेजिडेंट मान लो, उसको ऐसा लग रहा है कि सब कुछ बाहर ही मिल रहा है, but it would be deemed to accrue or arise in India अगर, let's skip the first part, if it's from a property in India. If it's from a property in India, let's take an example. I have a house property in India. अब चाहे उसका rent, even if the rent of that is received outside India, even if the agreement to receive the rent was signed outside India, everything was outside India. I never came to India to do any deal for that rent, right? But the property is in India, it would always be, the income from this property would always be deemed to accrue in India. And when it is deemed to accrue in India, it is taxable for everyone. And it is taxable for everyone. Okay? Then, from any asset or source of income in India. From any asset or source of income in India. For example, I have a FD. I have a FD with a Indian bank, with an Indian bank. Now, that FD is with an Indian bank and I am receiving interest. Now, that interest would always be deemed to accrue in India, even if that interest is received outside India in my foreign account, even if the funds which I used to open the FD was the funds which I earned outside India. But since the source of income is in India, since the asset is in India, it would be considered to be an income deemed to accrue or arise in India. Third, last point. Through the transfer of capital asset, situated in India. मतलब अगर कोई capital asset इंडिया में situated है, if any capital asset is of India, so उसको transfer करने से, उसको बेचने से, simple language में उसको sell करने से या उसको transfer करने से, whatever income is coming would be considered to be income accrued in India. For example, एक example लेते हैं. I am Mr. Joy. Okay. I have sold a property to Mr. Roy. Both of us are American citizens. We are American passport holders. We are non-resident in India. But I sold the property which was situated in India. The property which was situated in India. So now, even if both of us आर आउटसाइड इंडिया, अब आप बोलोगे भाई इंडिया के बाहर रह के बाहर में डीलिंग हो रही है तो सोर्स कैसे होगा? सोर्स इसलिए इंडिया होगा बिकॉज द एसेट विच इज बीइंग ट्रांसफर्ड वाज सिचुएटेड इन इंडिया. द एसेट which was transferred was situated in India. Even if we both are American citizen, even if we are doing an agreement outside India, even if he will give me the compensation or the consideration in US dollars, does not matter. The capital asset is situated in India. The gain from that would be deemed to be accrued in India and hence taxable in India. Similarly, any income from any property in India, from any source in India, from any asset in India, or from transfer of any capital asset situated in India. एक point रहेगा, what is business connection? To understand business connection, so earlier, those who have done as per the old syllabus, earlier business connection क्या होता है, what is business connection, what does business connection covers, it has significant economic presence, there were some terms which were there part of your syllabus, but now for the new study material it is removed. It is totally removed. So you only have to understand and remember कि business connection अगर है इंडिया में, it would be income deemed to accrue or arise in India. Okay. Business connection क्या होता है? How do we determine it? Everything is covered at final level. Okay. It is not there at your level, at intermediate level. But to understand what is business connection, एक non-resident है. One person is a non-resident who is staying in Africa. He is staying in Africa. A person is a non-resident who is staying in Africa. उसका business connection इंडिया में है. अब आप बोलोगे व्हाट इज बिजनेस कनेक्शन मैम. से उसका एक एजेंट, प्योर एजेंट इज वर्किंग इन इंडिया ऑन हिज बिहाफ. On his behalf, he's doing contracts on his behalf, he's taking orders on his behalf, he's maintaining stock on his behalf, like a pure agent. Agent समझते हो ना, who is someone who is acting on behalf of a person, right? So एक नॉन रेजिडेंट जो अफ्रीका में बैठा है, but he has a pure agent who is working for him day in and day out. So any income which is coming from this pure agent would be considered to be deemed to accrue in India for this non-resident, because he had a business connection. Business करने के लिए he had a connection who was in India, who was sitting in India as his agent, and he was doing all his work. So whatever income is getting accrued to that agent would be considered as business income for non-resident as deemed to accrue in India. As deemed to accrue in India. Simple. कैसे समझो, अपने आप को नॉन रेजिडेंट समझो. Think yourself as non-resident. Think yourself that there is an agent who is working, who is doing all business-related activities on my behalf. On my behalf. अब उसको I'm giving commission or whatever, it's between me and him, or salary, it is between me and him. But he is performing every activity on my behalf. So as a non-resident, I cannot say that I did not come to India to do the business. मेरे को business का जो पैसा है वो भी foreign currency में मिल रहा है. No, I have earned that income through a business connection who was working as my pure agent. So hence this income would be deemed to accrue in India. Hence this income would be deemed to accrue in India. So for example, I am sitting in Africa. A person on my behalf takes a contract, takes a business contract in India. Say Mr. Lal. Mr. Lal is taking a contract on my behalf. He's doing all the necessary formalities. अब चाहे अफ्रीका से वो मैं बिजनेस करूं, चाहे वो अफ्रीका से मैं गुड्स इंडिया भेजूं या जो मर्जी करूं, बट सिंस there was a business connection who was present in India, so that income would be said to be accrued in India. So the first part of section 9, subsection 1, clause 1 has 4 things. Any income accruing directly or indirectly to an SSC outside India would be still be considered to be deemed to accrue in India if it's from a business connection in India, if from a property in India, if it's from an asset or source in India, or if it's from a transfer of capital asset situated in India. From all these 4 cases, if an income is coming, it would be deemed to accrue in India and it would be taxable for everyone. Why I'm focusing on non-resident more and more? Because non-resident को अपने perspective से देखना है ना. Resident के लिए तो everything is taxable, उसको क्या फायदा? But non-resident को he has to see that even if everything is outside India, but it would still be deemed to accrue it in India if the business connection is in India, if the property is in India, if the asset or source is in India, if the capital asset which is situated in India. समझ आया? 9 subsection 1. बिजनेस कनेक्शन को समझने के लिए जस्ट टेक एन इमेज ऑफ एजेंट इन माइंड. सर वो ना 9 सबसेक्शन 2 नहीं लिखोगे, सब ये जो सारे हैं ये सब क्लॉजेस हैं, क्लॉजेस है रादर ऑफ सेक्शन 9 सबसेक्शन 1. धीरे धीरे याद हो जाएगा, डोंट वरी, यू विल रिमेम्बर इट स्लोली स्लोली व्हेन वी विल मूव अहेड. कोई भी कॉन्सेप्ट यहाँ पे नहीं है. अभिषेक, व्हाट इज योर डाउट? आई डिड नॉट रिसीव योर डाउट अभिषेक. If nobody is there for business connection, अगर business connection establish नहीं होता guys, then it is not an income accrued in India. आपको दिखाना है कि there is someone who is working as an agent, pure agent for me. Asset outside India है, Roy and Joy both are non-resident, but the amount is received in India. Madhav, very good question. It would be taxable in India because received in India का concept है. Taxability के लिए, scope के लिए, received in India is there or accrued in India is there. Then deemed to received in India is there and accrued, deemed to accrue in India is there. अगर directly आपको पता चल रहा है if it is accruing in India, it is taxable. Deemed to accrue in India, all of these provisions are there. Even if it is not accrued in India, not deemed to accrue in India, but it is received in India, it would be taxable. Okay, Madhav? तभी वो टेबल में रिसीव्ड इन इंडिया था, अक्रूड इन इंडिया था, एंड जो थर्ड कंडीशन थी, doing outside India, receiving outside India. That was only in case of resident, which would be taxable, but for non-resident or RNOR, it would not be taxable. But for RNOR, if it is from a business controlled in India, it would be taxable. Simple. ये 4 पॉइंट्स में किसी को डाउट है गाइस? स्वाति, बिजनेस कनेक्शन का मतलब है, देखो एसेट इंडिया में समझ आ गया, सब कुछ कैपिटल एसेट सिचुएटेड इन इंडिया समझ आ गया, सोर्स सिचुएटेड इन इंडिया गॉट इट. बिजनेस कनेक्शन इन इंडिया मतलब एक प्योर, आई एम सिटिंग इन ऑस्ट्रेलिया बट आई हैव सम प्योर एजेंट हु इज वर्किंग फॉर मी इन इंडिया, तो वो प्योर एजेंट मेरा बिजनेस कनेक्शन हो जाएगा. दैट प्योर एजेंट वुड बी माई बिजनेस कनेक्शन एंड वट एवर इनकम आई एम गेटिंग फ्रॉम that pure agent or because of that pure agent would be taxable in India as income deemed to accrue in India, even if I'm sitting outside India, even if the money would be received outside India. But since it is because of that business connection, एक connection मेरा है बाहर India में, it is because of that business connection, it is because of that pure agent, it would be said to be accrued in India. Third point क्या, from an asset or source of income in India. For example, we did na, like a fixed deposit is in India. Okay. Now, next, इसमें कुछ exceptions है. In case of non-resident, sorry, some exceptions are there. In case of non-resident, you will consider them not to accrue in India. कुछ exceptions है. Let's understand those exceptions. सिर्फ ज्यादा नहीं. Exceptions है या कुछ points है which you have to remember. Simple है, very simple. In case of a business in respect of which all the operations are not carried out in India. ध्यान से सुनना, इसका क्या एक्सेप्शन है? They are saying कि only business income in relation to specific operation would be considered as accrued in India. In relation to other operations, if they're not happening in India, it would not be considered to be in India. For example, this is the simplest example I can tell, so please focus here. I know a person who is Mr. Bing, Mr. Bing. Okay, Mr. Bing is a USA person. He has a manufacturing operations going on. Okay, he has a manufacturing operations going on. एक basic raw material manufacturing happens in China. Then second processing and refining happens in India. And then final assembling happens in USA. Now, the question, all operations are not carried out in India. इंडिया में सारे ऑपरेशन तो नहीं हो रहे. रॉ मटेरियल से लेके बेसिक वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस चाइना में हो रहा है. Next processing stage and refining stage and polishing stage India में is happening. Third, assembling everything is happening in USA. So, अब will I say that income is accrued in India for the product which is sold now? अब क्योंकि कुछ बिजनेस कनेक्शन के थ्रू मैं इंडिया में भी काम करा रही हूँ, राइट? आई एम गेटिंग द वर्क डन in India also to an extent, right? So only income which would be related to this process would be taxable in India, not the entire income would be deemed to accrue in India, because operations are segregated across the globe. So only in relation to the operations which are carried out in India, it would be deemed to accrue in India. Makes sense also. Common sense वाला चीज है. जो operations India में हो रहे हैं, खाली उसके related income को हम deemed to accrue in India बोलेंगे. So let's read. In case of a business of which all the operations are not carried out in India, the income of the business deemed to accrue or arise in India shall only be such part of the income as is reasonably attributable to the operations carried out in India. Therefore, it follows that such part of income which cannot be reasonably attributed to operations in India would not be deemed to accrue or arise in India. Okay? It would not be deemed to accrue. और वो proportionately निकालते हैं, कैसे निकालते हैं? That is up to them. So to understand this, think of an example where multiple processes are going in different countries and then a product is sold and then a product is sold. So only one process से related which is happening in India, उसी को deemed to accrue in India माना जाएगा. Okay, very simple, very common sense also, right? Next exception which you have to remember, if a non-resident, in case of a non-resident, no income shall be deemed to accrue or arise in India. No income would be deemed to accrue or arise in India through or from operations which are confined to purchase of goods in India for the purpose of export. अब कोई ना मेरे से बार एक question this person was asking in the next last class also. एक्सपोर्ट का इनकम टैक्सेबल होगा, एक्सपोर्ट का इनकम टैक्सेबल होगा, एक्सपोर्ट का इनकम टैक्सेबल होगा. देखो, अब आई एम सिटिंग, लिसन केयरफुली, ध्यान से प्लीज. सी सबको एग्जाम्पल से समझेंगे बहुत इजी हो जाएगा. ध्यान से एवरीवन, I am sitting outside India. I am again a non-resident, Mr. Non-resident. I'm not Mr. Non-resident. Okay. I have a business connection in India. एक एजेंट है मेरा इंडिया में who does what? He does what? He procures good. Procures good मतलब he purchase goods from local vendors इंडिया में. He purchase goods and then वो सामान इकट्ठा करके he exports everything. Exports and basically exports everything out, say sell everything out. Export outside India, sell outside India. क्या सिचुएशन है? अगर वो बिजनेस, अब सिंपल सा, पहले हमने बिजनेस कनेक्शन के लिए समझा, एनी इनकम कमिंग फ्रॉम बिजनेस कनेक्शन इन इंडिया इज टैक्सेबल एज एन इनकम फॉर नॉन रेजिडेंट एज डीम्ड टू अक्रूड. करेक्ट. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर ये बिजनेस एजेंट परचेज करता मेरे बिहाफ पे इंडिया से लोकल वेंडर से, सपोज इज एक्सपोर्टिंग ज्वेलरी, तो उसने लोकल वेंडर से ज्वेलरी कलेक्ट किया एंड अगर वो ज्वेलरी इंडिया में बेचता, इट वुड हैव बीन माय इनकम डीम्ड टू अक्रू इन इंडिया. It would have been an income deemed to accrue in India. But now he has collected jewelry and he is selling that jewelry all together for the purpose of export. India में वो sell नहीं हो रहा. India में it is not being sold. It is sold outside India. It is sold outside India. तो वो export income इस case में guys would not be taxable in the hands of non-resident as income deemed to accrue in India. Even if it is coming from a business connection, but the sale did not happen in India. The sale is happening outside India. Everything is exported. Everything is exported. It would not be deemed to accrue in India. Yes, if that person would have sold any part of it in India, that would have been an income deemed to accrue in India through a business connection. But since he's purchasing it and exporting everything outside, then export से वो जो income आएगा would not be called as deemed to be accrued in India. But guys, resident के लिए every income is deemed to accrue in India, and then it is every income is taxable. Just understand deeming provisions from the concept of non-resident. I'm saying again and again, it would be very easy to understand. दोनों में कोई doubt? First 2 points में I'm going point by point so that I know it is clear or not. Yes, calculator. I hope your question is answered now. If partially sold in India, then partially would be taxable in India, definitely. The part of which is exported would not be taxable. ये सब सिंपल सेंस है ना। मैं नॉन रेजिडेंट हूँ, बस एक सामान इकट्ठा होके वो बाहर एक्सपोर्ट हो रहा है, तो वो बाहर से ही सब कुछ हो रहा है, बाहर ही सेल हो रहा है, व्हाई शुड इट बी टैक्सेबल? ओके रचना। श्रीनिवासन, अगर पोयम इंडिया में हो गया, वो रेजिडेंट है तो एवरी इनकम इज टैक्सेबल, नो? हाउ टू डिफाइन अ प्रोडक्ट हु इज गोइंग थ्रू ऑल थ्री कंडीशंस? व्हाट प्रोडक्ट, माधव? Even if agent is doing all transactions through his personal account, but that person is a pure agent. Pure agent means he is exclusively working for me, he's a business connection. Income deemed to accrue in India. So deemed in India nahi, Mamta, please write it properly. Income deemed to accrue in India means even if prima facie आपको लगता है conditions देख के कि it is outside India, person is also outside India, agreements are also happening outside India, money is also received outside India. But no, if there is a if it is coming from a business activity and you have a business connection in India, if it's from an asset which is situated in India, if it's from a transfer of capital asset situated in India, if it's from a source which is in India, it would be deemed to accrue in India. Okay, Mamta? Correct. Purchase of good would not constitute any income, it is expenditure. बट जब वो सेल होगा तब तो इनकम होगा ना, स्वाति? अगर वो सेल इंडिया में हो रहा है तो इट इज फ्रॉम अ बिजनेस कनेक्शन इन इंडिया। जीएसटी वगैरह में आई एम नॉट फोकसिंग ऑन, आई एम टॉकिंग फ्रॉम द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ इनकम टैक्स। खुद को इनकम टैक्स के पर्सपेक्टिव से समझो, तभी समझ आएगा इफ यू आर अंडरस्टैंडिंग इट फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम। डोंट मिक्स द सिनेरियोस। आरओआर के लिए तो एक्सपोर्ट, आरओआर के लिए तो ग्लोबल इनकम ही टैक्सेबल है ना श्रुति। वो कहीं पे भी हो रही हो, वो अफ्रीका में हो रही हो, एंटार्क्टिका में हो रही हो, वो एवरीवेयर इट इज टैक्सेबल। Please, all your related queries in relation to tax rates, please ask it in the next class. I have repeated in the beginning of the class also, and I'm repeating now also. I hope Abhishek it is clear. इनकम सेल से आती है गाइस, परचेज से नहीं आती। एक्सपोर्ट सब बाहर हो रहा है, तभी तो इनकम होगी। अगर मैं आर ओ आर हूँ, टैक्सेबल। इफ आई एम नॉन रेजिडेंट, नॉट टैक्सेबल। And this is in relation to purchase from India only. If it is purchased from outside India, sold outside India, how does it matter? How does it matter to the government if you are a non-resident? Purchase भी outside किया, sell भी outside किया, that is accrued outside, receive also outside. So how does it matter to Indian government? Next, two are very interesting. Collection of news and views in India for transmission out of India. If BBC USA, okay, BBC network news channel है USA, is playing any news which is in relation to India. Okay, if it is playing any news which is in relation to India, वहाँ पे इंडिया में वो लोग आए, they took the interviews and they went back, and now it is there on BBC USA channel. Indian government authority cannot go and ask, नहीं नहीं, ये जो news है, it is in relation to India, you have to pay tax on it. No, it's an exception. So if a non-resident covers a news in either newspapers, magazines, journals, etc., just to collect the news and views of India, and it is transmitted outside India. Transmitted matlab it is published or viewed outside India as a whole, then it is not an Indian income. It is not deemed to accrue in India. ये government नहीं कह सकती जाके that it is deemed to accrue in India because the news which you are running is of Indian people. No. Okay. Next. ऐसे ही if suppose Warner Brothers come and shoot Spider-Man in India, okay? Spider-Man in India. So it would not, अब उसकी sales से whatever come would not be said that it's an income in India, provided the the production house is a non-resident, provided the production house is a non-resident. This is shooting of cinematographic films in India. उस पे इंडिया नहीं बोल सकती कि ये शूटिंग इसका इंडिया में हुआ था, तो यू हैव टू गिव अस द इनकम टैक्स ऑन इट बिकॉज इट्स एन इनकम अक्रूड इन इंडिया. नो, shooting if happens in India, but it's from a non-resident, no income shall be deemed to accrue in India. Provided, remember the production house which we are talking about, the shooting is done by a non-resident who is also not a citizen, or by a firm जिसके कोई partners are not citizens, or by a company जिसके कोई shareholders are not citizens. Okay? Here. Last, these are all exceptions that these would not be deemed to accrue in India. In the case of foreign company engaged in the business of mining, no income shall be deemed to accrue or arise in India through or from the activities which are confined to display of uncut, unsorted diamonds in any special zone notified by the government. अब क्या है, कोई foreign company आया, उसने अपने foreign company who is into diamonds, mining of diamonds, diamonds को mine करते हैं, निकालते हैं, ठीक है, and they have just displayed it. They have just displayed it. Not telling about selling, only in relation to display. अब उससे कुछ भी income आ रही है from display, from publicity they are getting or anything, that would not be considered as income deemed to accrue in India, provided that display is in some special economic zone. Not a very relevant point, but just another exception. So what are the exceptions which are in relation to a non-resident that these would not be considered as deemed to accrue in India? First of all, in relation to business, out of which all the operations are not in India, only the income which is in relation to operations in India would be considered as income deemed to accrue in India. Secondly, if a non-resident purchase goods but it is exported outside India, it would not be called as deemed to accrue in India. Thirdly, if some non-resident is coming and collecting news to publish it on TV, newspaper, journals, anywhere, it would not be deemed to accrue in India. Shooting was cinematographic films. If a person is coming and shooting in India, it would not be deemed to, the income from the movie would not be deemed to accrue in India, provided the production house is a non-resident and also a non-citizen. If it's an individual, if it's a firm, then no partner is citizen, and if it's a company, no shareholder is Indian citizen. ठीक है, उसके अलावा प्रॉपर्टी, कैपिटल एसेट वी हैव डन. नेक्स्ट, इनकम फ्रॉम सैलरीज अर्न्ड इन इंडिया. When would salaries be said to be deemed to accrue in India? This is next part of section 9, subsection 1, clause 2. When the services are rendered in India, it would be deemed to accrue in India and it would be said as it is earned in India. So any salary would be deemed to accrue in India when it is earned in India. And when it is earned in India, when the services are rendered in India. For example, ABC Inc. of USA company sends person Mr. X on some project in India. Okay? Now, X is getting salary. X is getting salary. That part of salary which he is getting for rendering services in India is income deemed to accrue in India. Is an income deemed to accrue in India. That part of salary which is receiving for giving services in India, that could be deemed to accrue in India. That part of salary. अब suppose अगर वो साल में 12 महीने में in 12 months he was here in for 2 months. So 2 months का salary would be termed as deemed to accrue in India and would be taxed as salary for Mr. X. For Mr. X. अब यहाँ पे मिस्टर एक्स कहते हैं कि मैं तो नॉन रेजिडेंट हूँ, मुझे जिस कंपनी से मिल रहा है वो भी नॉन रेजिडेंट है, मुझे मिल भी अपने यूएस अकाउंट में रहा है. No, the services were rendered in India. The services were rendered in India. It would be deemed to accrue in India. Okay. And by salary, we also mean salary for leave, salary for the period which is in relation to that period when you were rendering the services in India. Now, someone asked me, ma'am, जो हमारे foreign embassies में हमारे Indian diplomats होते हैं, the diplomats who are working in foreign embassies, वो नॉन रेजिडेंट होते हैं. यस, वो नॉन रेजिडेंट होते हैं, करेक्ट, बिकॉज दे आर मोस्टली आउटसाइड इंडिया. बट व्हाट अबाउट देयर सैलरी? देयर सैलरी, अब उनको, अब सपोज समवन इज वर्किंग इन यूएसए में, इंडियन हाई कमीशन में दे आर वर्किंग. Indian High Commission मतलब Indian Embassy. And I hope everyone knows the concept of Indian Embassy. हर कंट्री में इंडिया की एम्बेसी है where it is there for the citizens who are of India to help them out. Okay. So Indian High Commission में US में someone is working in Indian High Commission. ठीक है. What about salaries to them? अब आप बोलोगे कि मैम services are rendered outside India, it should not be taxable, right? But for someone who is working in USA, in Indian High Commission, but is a citizen of India, any salary which is paid to them, कौन पे करेगा? Government of India पे करेगी, right? Any salary which is paid to them would be considered as income accrued in India. Would be considered as income accrued in India. What did I say? First case हमने पढ़ा, salary for services rendered in India is taxable in India. बट डिप्लोमैट्स के केस में इवन इफ दे आर रेंडरिंग सर्विसेज आउटसाइड इंडिया, डिप्लोमैट्स कौन से होते हैं? जो एक कमीशन में काम करते हैं, those who work in high commissions or embassies outside India. So those diplomats, even if they are rendering services outside India, but if the income is paid by the government, yes, and they are citizen of India, they would be, the income to them would be said to be deemed to accrue in India. Even if they are non-resident, they would pay tax on that salary, even if they are rendering services outside India. This is only for people who are working outside India and the government of India is paying them salary and they are Indian citizen. So ये कंडीशन है, तभी वो इनकम डीम टू accrue in India होगी. अब देखो प्राइमा फेसी सारे फैक्ट से ऐसा लग रहा है कि इट शुड बी कंसिडर्ड एज non-resident, it should not be taxable because it is accruing outside, it is received outside. No. Since the salary is paid by the government of India, the person is Indian citizen, and it is a salary, so it would be, and it is for the services rendered outside India, it would be taxable in India as income deemed to accrue in India. Okay. बट इसके साथ साथ एक और एग्जेम्पशन है. एग्जेम्पशन मतलब अमाउंट विच कुड नॉट बी टैक्सेबल. कोई भी सैलरी में ना गाइस, यू विल सी सैलरी में देयर आर अ लॉट ऑफ कंपोनेंट्स. You will, the next chapter after this is salary only. You will see there are a lot of components. There are allowances, there are perquisites, there are basic salary. So any allowance and perquisite given to them is not taxable. Any allowance and perquisite given to them is not taxable as per section 10 clause 7. So khali basic salary, basic component of the salary would be taxable. Basic salary होता है, allowances होते हैं छोटे छोटे, then perquisites होती हैं. So खाली basic salary would be taxable in India if it is paid by government of India for a person who is Indian citizen for the services rendered outside India. Example से समझोगे और easy होगा. Next and the last one. Dividend paid by Indian company outside India. अब इंडियन कंपनी है, जब भी वो अपना डिविडेंड डिक्लेयर करेगी, इट वुड बी एन इनकम डीम्ड टू अक्रू इन इंडिया. इवन इफ यू आर अ नॉन रेजिडेंट, यू हैव इन्वेस्टेड इन इंडियन कंपनीज, ठीक है, यू विल गेट डिविडेंड फ्रॉम देम. आपने इसके शेयर्स लिए, आपने इंडियन कंपनी के शेयर्स लिए, यू टुक द शेयर्स ऑफ इंडियन कंपनी, you will get dividend out of it. This dividend would always be deemed to accrue rise in India and it would always be taxable, irrespective of the fact that आपने shares foreign currency में खरीदे, irrespective of the fact that you are not an Indian citizen, you are not a resident. Dividend from an Indian company is said to be income deemed to accrue in India. ठीक है, so अभी तक we did 4 clauses. One clause was which had 4 parts. One clause was income deemed to accrue or arise in India, whether that income is accruing or arising outside India, but it would be assumed to accrue or arise in India if it's from a business connection, if in India, if it's from a property in India, if it's from an asset or source in India, if it's from a transfer of capital assets situated in India. So ये first part के 4 part थे. Then we saw about salaries. Salary for services rendered in India would always be taxable as income in India. Salary for services rendered outside India, for which the government of India is paying, to an Indian citizen, would always be an income for India and it would be taxable as income of India. But at the same time, there are certain exemptions in the form of allowances and perquisite and that are not taxable, and that are not taxable. Last thing, dividend. If you're receiving dividend of any company which is Indian, Indian company मतलब Indian incorporated company, उसका dividend मिल रहा है, it will always be an income deemed to accrue as in India. By the time I take your queries, I would request, if it is clear, to please do illustration 6, and I'll take the queries of everyone. इसके अभी और पार्ट है which we'll be covering up in the next class. Okay, if services are rendered outside India and global income is received, then it is global income is received. मतलब what is global income received? Services rendered outside India, received in India, taxable in India, because as per the receiving concept. नो श्रीनिवासन, अगर शूटिंग इंडिया में हो रही है, स्पाइडरमैन की शूटिंग इंडिया में हुई थी, उन्होंने इंडिया को डीम्ड अप्रूव्ड नहीं माना था. यस दीप श्रेय, यू कैन. Goods collected in India, sold in Pakistan, money received in India, to money received in Pakistan. If money is received in India, as in the income is received, don't say money, first of all, it's say income. If income is received in India, it would be taxable in India. Accruing देखना ही नहीं है. If income first received, पहले इंडिया में रिसीव हुई, it would be taxable in India. 1% परचेजेस सेल ऑफ अदर, तो वो सेल ऑफ अदर का हमें क्या करना है, हमें नॉन रेजिडेंट के पर्सपेक्टिव से देखना है, राइट. जो जिससे परचेज करो उसकी सेल है, वो तो इंडियन इनकम है ही. आई एम टॉकिंग फ्रॉम हरीश, आई एम टॉकिंग फ्रॉम द पर्सपेक्टिव व्हेन अ पर्सन इज परचेजिंग एंड इज एक्सपोर्टिंग आउटसाइड इंडिया. Yes, session is over. Yes, this. I have also revised each and every concept. Please tell me if there's any other doubt. Income arising from export of goods, there is some exemption to that income. Income arising from export of goods to a resident would always be taxable, guys. Bye, Divya. Take care. कैलकुलेटर, डिप्लोमेट्स के केस में इंडियन गवर्नमेंट सैलरी पे करती है, फॉरेनर गवर्नमेंट सैलरी नहीं पे करती. हैव थोड़ा सा अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ व्हाट इज गोइंग ऑन इकोनॉमी, ओके. माधव नहीं, वहां पे इफ वी आर टैक्सिंग आर इनकम, सो जो वहां के एम्प्लॉयज, वहां के डिप्लोमेट्स हैं और वर्किंग इन इंडिया, देयर इनकम वुड नॉट बी टैक्सेबल. देयर इज अ रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव कॉन्सेप्ट. थैंक यू रचना. आई होप एवरीवन हैज डन इलस्ट्रेशन 6. किसी को कोई डाउट हो, प्लीज आस्क. एंड देवेंद्र, I would say just listen to the last class after the break and today's class. In case you still have query, please do ask. Residential status is extremely important to understand the scope of total income. अब आपको पता चल गया कि क्या क्या इनकम टैक्सेबल होगा. You will divide it into various heads and make it taxable. Okay? जो सैलरी इनकम है वो सैलरी हेड में, जो बिजनेस इनकम है बिजनेस हेड में. Good day to everyone. Illustration 6, part 3. Interest on fixed deposits from bank in India. Yes, it would be an income in India because it's the deposit is the source is in India. It would be an income deemed to accrue in India. 1 lakh definitely tax किया होगा. ये तो है. Yes, or income arising to an ROR would be taxable in India. It can be taxed in other country. उसके लिए we have simple treaties. वो solution होता है, वो government आपस में मिलके निकाल लेते हैं. Okay. I will leave you all today with this. Please do read line by line. Please do all the questions and do attempt the illustrations which are there. Display of diamond wala Vishal abhi thoda sa ignore karo. It's not that important. Please do all the illustrations which are there. It would be easy for you to understand the questions which are there in self-knowledge also. Okay? So see you all. Have a good day and we'll be meeting now on Tuesday. Thank you. 10-7 में would be available for embassy employee. मतलब सैलरी में ना बहुत सारे कंपोनेंट्स होते हैं. देयर आर मेनी कंपोनेंट्स इन सैलरी. दिस ओनली बेसिक सैलरी कंपोनेंट वुड बी टैक्सेबल. बाकी अलाउंसेस एंड परक्विजिट्स आर एग्जेम्प्ट मतलब दे वुड नॉट बी टैक्सेबल इवन इफ दे आर डीम्ड टू अक्रू इन इंडिया, बट दे वुड नॉट बी टैक्सेबल. थैंक यू गाइस. बाय. डन.